Columbus, Georgia, this is your City Council. Mayor, Skip Henderson. City Manager, Isaiah Hughley. Pops Barnes, District 1. Glenn Davis, District 2. Bruce Huff, District 3. Evelyn Turner Pugh, Mayor Pro Tem and District 4. Charmaine Crabb, District 5. Gary Allen, District 6. Mimi Woodson, District 7. Walker Garrett, District 8. Judy Thomas, Post 9 at-large Counselor. John House, Post 10 at-large Counselor. Sandra Davis, Clerk of Council. And City Attorney Clifton Fay. Columbus, Georgia, this is your City Council.
Good morning and welcome to I've wanted to do that and it's never been loud enough to do that. Good morning and welcome to the June 11th Council meeting. We're pleased that you have joined us this morning. We are going to begin, as we always do, in these chambers, and that's by asking God's blessing. So I'd like to invite Pastor Jimmy Elder to the podium, please, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. I am honored to live in this community and honored to offer a prayer for you who hold this in trust. So would you bow with me as together we pray. Thank you, Lord, for the gift of a community like ours, for citizens that love and care and promote the good in the community, for these who hold in trust the government and the things that are a part of weaving the community together. And I pray that your blessings will be upon each person here. May your wisdom be present. May your strength and your courage be a part of all the lives of those in this room. Again, we thank you for the community that we have. Help us never to take it for granted, never to look at it with anything but love, and always find in it the very best that you have to offer to us. May we offer the best to you. In your precious name we pray this day. Amen.
Amen. Pastor, and before you get away, let me just say personally, this community is full of unsung heroes, people that operate below the water level and don't really care about credit, just care about betterment for this community and the people that live there. And you, sir, are at the front of that line. And I just want to publicly thank you and tell these folks gathered and those watching that they have no idea how many fingerprints you're leaving on this community. But we are a better community for your presence, and we thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, next up, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance performed by some amazing young people from Easter Seals. If y'all would come up to the front, and if you'd get them the microphone, and the rest of you, if you'd please stand. Outstanding. Now, before you get away, if you would, we'd love to find out who these people are and ask them to share their names and a little bit about Easter Seals, if you want to.
Okay, we're from Easter Seals of West Georgia. This is an adult class, and we're excited to be here.
Hang on, let's make sure that's on. There we go.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
My name is Rebecca, and I'm from Easter Seals of West Georgia. I'm one of the life coaches there. And these are a bunch of amazing young adults. I love working with them every day. And I'll have them say their names. What's your name?
Joe Butts.
What's your name?
Robert Elkins.
My name is Edward Morris.
What's your name? That's Charlie.
My name is Deborah Bottoms.
Andrew Higsett.
Heather Rossi.
Ethan Asamoah.
What's your name?
And Henry. Well, thank you all for doing such a great job. Give them another round of applause.
Thank you so much. It was an honor being here. Thank you for having
We
us.
hope you'll come back. Thank y'all.
you.
All right, we have advertised a public hearing for 9 o'clock. Mr. City Attorney, if you'd hit your light, and we'll...
Thank you, Mayor. This is the third and final hearing required by state statute. It's called a Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing that is required when the value of our county tax digest is projected to increase, which it is this year. And I didn't know if the finance director wanted to come around just for a moment. Then we'll see if anybody wants to be heard.
Good morning. So
Good
as
morning.
the city attorney mentioned, this is the third and final taxpayer bill of rights hearing for our FY 2020 budget. As the city attorney mentioned, this hearing is required by state law. The Columbus Consolidated Government must calculate a rollback millage as required by state law, and when we are proposing a millage rate that is greater than the rollback millage rate that was calculated, we have to advertise a notice of property tax increase and hold these particular hearings. One thing I'd just like to make mention is that the millage rate that we're currently adopting is the same millage rate that has been in place for the last 5 fiscal years. So there is no increase in the tax rate as far as the millage is concerned. The rollback rate that is calculated by the tax commissioner's office is a rate that is determined if there were no reassessments that occurred, and reassessments occur when there are building improvements or if property is being bought and sold throughout the county. And so that would trigger a reassessment. And so we have to calculate a rate that would bring us the same total revenue that we received in the prior fiscal year had no reassessments occurred. So that is what that rate is. And turn it over to the city attorney's office to proceed with the hearing.
Okay. Anybody in the audience want to be heard? This is required related to the projected increase in our tax digest. If you have a homestead exemption on your house, your taxes should not change for the upcoming billing. All right, Mayor, don't see any hands, so that will conclude the third and final hearing under OCGA 48-5-32.1.
Thank you, sir. All right, and before we call up the auditor, they're going to have a transition audit to report. I'm going to move up a resolution honoring some student athletes in our community. We're always proud of the success that they have within the classroom, but we kind of like it when they bring home hardware too. So we want to call up the Northside High School baseball team, and I'm going to turn it over to our resident expert on all things long ball, Glenn Davis.
Thanks, Mayor.
Gentlemen, come forward.
I have a resolution here. There's actually, yeah. This is your Northside High state champs, the baseball title, 4A division. Good stuff, guys. Awesome. Now come on around. Picked a good day to do this. Got a lot of people out in the stands here to watch it. We're honored today. I just have the privilege to read a resolution here that actually my fellow colleague over here, Councilor Allen, and I are sponsoring, but it's not really he and I sponsoring this. It's this whole council, because I believe that they are in total support of what is accomplished here by you guys, your actions. So what we're doing today, this is a resolution. This is officially the city recognizing you and honoring you for your accomplishment. It's going to be historically archived in the records of Columbus, Georgia forever, because you've accomplished it. And that's what we're doing here today. But more so, we just want to let you know that we're proud of you. It takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, and I have to just take a moment. I woke up this morning, I was talking to Councilor Allen, and I won a couple state championships way back when. And let me tell you about way back when. And look, I will tell you, I've accomplished a lot of things. I've done a lot of things at a high level in the game of baseball, and you know what? You know, those are great. I still remember my state championships. I really do. It just sticks with you. I remember it today. I got to thinking about it. I want to thank y'all for helping me to reminisce this morning and thinking about some of the things that I accomplished. But that's what I really want to drive home today. It's the things, that the life lessons, the character values and strengths that you've learned and that you come to know along the way. It's a journey. And look, you don't go into the state championship, you don't go into the playoffs and state championships without a lot of lessons to be learned, mainly pressure. And look, it looks like y'all had a nail biter right there at the end. I mean, it was close, wasn't it? So you know that feeling. That's the feeling that you take with you all through life. You can get things done. Perseverance, you can get things done because you guys are winners, all right? And the main thing, and what I just said, is nobody will ever be able to take that away from you. You accomplished it. You accomplished it, and we're proud of you, and we're recognizing you today and honoring you. So, guys, thank you for representing Columbus. I know you've done it in a fantastic way, and I'm going to read this resolution into the archives. And then we've got, I think, the mayor has a resolution for each and every one of you. And
we'll present it to the coach.
That's right, and I think that there'll be a few council members that also want to talk to you about what you've done too. So here we go. Whereas the Northside Patriots swept the Denmark Danes 7-6, that's the nail biter, and 11-2 to claim the 2019 Georgia High School Association Class 4A state baseball title in Rome, Georgia. Whereas the Patriots 32-8 came back from a 5-1 deficit in the opener. Whereas Walt McConnell's bases clearing double in the fourth capped a 4-run inning and tied the game 5-5. Whereas Denmark, 21-19, scored in the top of the fifth to retake the lead, but Northside came through in the bottom of the seventh. Whereas Spencer Chandler's sacrifice fly tied the game. Whereas Justin Velez hit a fly ball that the left fielder Gary Wilson could not handle, which allowed Mac Williams to score the game-winning run. Whereas Game 2 was never in doubt. The Patriots scored twice in the first inning and added 4 more in the third, and again in the sixth to blow the game wide open. Whereas Connor Sizemore went the distance on the mound, tossing a 5-hitter and striking out 6. And whereas the state title is the first in the program history for Northside baseball. Whereas the achievements of Northside High School boys baseball team are worthy of special recognition by this council. Now therefore the Council of Columbus, Georgia hereby resolves, we hereby commend and congratulate the following members of the Northside High School boys baseball team for winning the 2019 Georgia High School Association Class 4A Baseball State Championships. I'm going to read y'all's names, but guys, you did it the right way. You hit, you scored runs, you got good pitching, I imagine good defense, and that's what put you ahead. But that's fantastic coming back from such a challenge in that first game and then just blowing it out. I think y'all made a statement, you know, and showed them where you came from, right? All right, well, here's the names. I'm going to read the names. Just raise your hand, or if you want to step forward, why don't you just step forward over here, and then we can recognize everybody. All right, Torrey Van Patten, Scotty Allen, KJ Barber, Walt McConnell, Connor Trepanier. Justin Velez. Spencer Chandler. Mac Williams. Joey Belanek. Gage Washam. Clayton Weaver. Hunter Poe. Will Graydon. Charles Stephenson. Trey Richburg. Elu McMore. Connor O'Neill. Colton Joyner. Alex Harrell. Connor Sizemore. Tyler Elrod. Will Bryant. Cal Berg. And then we have the coaches, Dee Miller, Steve Sparks, he's a good baseball man, Derek Branch, David Buchanan, Greg Stotzer, Blake Cooper, and Taylor Harper. Coach Sparks, you remember when I used to wear the batting cage out down there in Brookstone, right? Are these guys doing the same thing? Are they doing the same thing these days? That's great. Well, congratulations, guys. And like I said, there's going to be a resolution that the mayor, it says here that this is a resolution to be forwarded to the Northside High School and each member of the Northside High School boys baseball team, and presented at the Columbus Consolidated Proclamation Resolution meeting, but we're not doing that. We've done it here today. So congratulations, guys. It's official. I'll make a motion that we adopt it.
Motion second to approve. All in favor, please stand. Coach, we've got a number of counselors that want to make some comments, but we'd like for you to make a few comments of your own, if you don't mind.
Well, we want to thank Mayor Henderson and the council for this recognition. This is just a great group of young men. We, as you start your meeting, we start every game with a prayer as well, circled up, and one of the things that I would pray in our prayer, and I would invite our guys to lead, and sometimes they would lead, but when they didn't, I would lead the team in prayer, and one of the things that I would thank the Lord for is just for allowing me to be associated with this group. It's a group of young men that's high character on and off the field. They're obviously pretty talented on the field by their run to the state championship this year, but just truly blessed to be surrounded by a group of great young men, great coaches. And it's just been truly a special ride, and one that, you know, as Mr. Davis said, we'll never forget. High school baseball, high school athletics, as we grow old, do hold a special place in our heart. And I'm excited to bring these guys back one day and continue to relive a state championship and the memories that were formed, and it's just been truly a blessing to be associated with these guys. So thank everybody for today. Thank you for the resolution. It's pretty cool that their names will be in the history books of Columbus, Georgia.
Coach, y'all are a blessing to this community, too. Before we move on to the council, are the parents here? Because I know as parents of young athletes, y'all don't spend any time at the baseball field, do you? So how about the parents standing up so we can recognize them? Y'all did a great job raising these young men. Counselor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to also offer my congratulations, and I wanted to point out Counselor Huff is baseball player as well. He played at Florida State and certainly understands what you're doing. And also behind you, I'm not sure if there's anybody else in the audience that has this, can claim this victory, but behind you is Pastor Mike Reeves. He was on the 1971 Jordan High School State Championship. So you see, if you take the right steps in life, you can become just about anything you want through what you have accomplished and going through this lesson in life. I'd like to thank all the coaches, especially everything that you have done to motivate these young men to take the right steps to get where they are. I know it's not just something that happens. Putting them in the right position, they understand position baseball. I mean, they understand putting them in the right position, putting the folks in there that start the game. And that's the way life is. You have an opportunity, you step up, and you do the right thing. So thank the parents, too, as well. We appreciate all you've done to represent Columbus, Georgia. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Huff.
Good morning, good morning. Coach Sparks' family goes back in sports here in Columbus, Georgia. I played against one of the ones that coached at Columbus High at the time when I was at Hardway, and we had some good battles. Speaking of Florida State this morning, everybody knows I'm on an all-time high. My dear compadre right here, I'm gonna tease him this morning. He sent me, if you didn't know, Councilor Davis played at the University of Georgia, and I played at Florida State. He sent me an 11-second video from Athens a couple weekends ago. So we'll talk about that later, but we went on. We've been friends for a long, long time. He played at the professional level with the Astros, and I made it as far as semi-pro. I didn't go quite as far as he did, but I followed him, watched him play, and he did a very, very good job, had a great career. But what I want to say to you this morning, the character that gets built from what you do, the hours you put in, and the things that you have to think about. You have to study. You're teenagers, you go through various things, emotional roller coaster rides, and your coaches are waking up every day trying to find you at practice to see if you're game ready. So now you know what it takes, and you were game ready. I speak of the Florida State run right now because I'm on an all-time high. We are headed to the World Series, but the best lesson of all is I was a freshman walk-on. I was a guy that they didn't see coming, that didn't have a chance. And I played all 4 years at Florida State. I was involved in conference championships and everything, but I never won a World Series. So you all stand high because you've won the state championship, and we're all very proud of you. But in following Florida State through the College World Series, just go back and follow the little guy by the name of Becker. Becker was a senior walk-on from the club baseball team, and he's living his dream right now. He's having the time of his life. So as you move forward, if this is it for you playing baseball, enjoy it. If any of you are going on to play at the next level, get involved in it. Think about what you've done so far, and please, please, please remember, you have to study first, always, always. If you don't have the average, you can't play. So I'm sure you all have done well so far, but college brings about a lot more for you to do and think about, a lot more distractions, and you have to really focus on what you're doing. So from one baseball player to another, congratulations. You all that will continue on will see what I'm saying, and if you need any of us here, please don't hesitate to call. But your coaches have prepared you for what you need to do, and your parents have been with you all the way. So congratulations, congratulations, congratulations.
Councilor Davis.
Mayor, I just, one thing that I always tell, I get asked to go do a lot of throwing out of baseballs, talking at little leagues and things like that, and I always talk to just the young folks in life. And the one thing I wanted to say that I didn't say earlier, and I'm not going to let you guys get out of the room without saying it, but coaches, I really wanted to thank you. I want to thank you because the time, the effort. It's not an easy thing to manage a baseball club. I mean, you got to hurt all these guys and get them where they need to be, and just to teach them over and over and over. And it's not just tell them once. You got to really ingrain that, and you got some great character in these guys. But the investment, I want to thank you for investing in the lives of these young men. Thank you for doing that. The second thing I also say is the parents. The parents and the families. I know there's some of you out there. I want to thank you. Look, these guys just didn't step out on the field and start playing baseball. They just didn't do that. A lot of you have been playing since what, 6, 7 years old? But your parents, I want to thank you because they got you signed up. They made the financial sacrifice. It costs a lot of money to play youth sports today. They got you uniforms, outfits, clothes, bats, the things you needed to play. They got you to practice on time. They got you where you needed to be, and they invested in you. I want to thank you, parents, for doing that. That's not an easy thing to do. Young men, remember that. You thank your parents for what they've done for you, because your success today, they've attributed to that, and your coaches as well. So think about all these other people. And the last thing, Mayor, Parks and Rec, the volunteers in this community. I mean, our region has been such a great hotbed for baseball over the years, but that's what makes it outstanding, is the people getting involved. We're going to talk about something today about a SPLOTS, that we've got a chance to really upgrade our facilities and for the next generation coming on, and that's going to be exciting. But because of the things they've done, because the city, the facilities and things they've allowed you to participate and be part of, that all attributes to winning and success. And just don't forget those things. So I wanted to make sure that that's said this morning.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, if you would, come around and do us the honor of letting us shake your hand. Really proud of y'all. Good job. Good job. Congratulations. Congratulations. Good job.
Good job again. How you doing?
Good job. Congratulations. Great job. We're all proud of y'all. Good job.
Great job.
Congratulations. Congratulations. That's it. I don't care. That's the best shirt. I don't care what happens. Good job, man. Great job.
Keep it up.
Good job. Congratulations. Congratulations. Great job.
Go dog. I like your shirt.
Congratulations. Great job. Congratulations. Good job. Good job.
Keep it up.
Outstanding. We're so proud of y'all. I gave the resolution to one of your coaches. We'll get it to you. Great job, man. Make Columbus proud. It's always nice to recognize the young people in our community for the positive things that they're doing. It seems like these days all we hear about are the negatives, and there's a whole lot of good stuff going on with the young people here in Columbus, Georgia. And we're going to call up the auditor, and while they're making their way here, I want to recognize Councilor Barnes for his birthday. Is that right? I think it's we will spare you the singing, but that's right. That's right. Happy birthday, sir. Mr. Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Manager, Mr. Attorney, Madam Clerk. It's my pleasure today to present the transition audit on the jury manager's office. This is a little bit of an unusual transition. This audit was requested by the Honorable Gil McBride, the Chief Judge of the Chattahoochee Judicial Circuit, and was authorized by City Council on April 9th this year. transition audit, in this case, is a limited scope. It involved review of the payroll, capital assets, budgetary performance, bank reconciliation, and operational responsibilities. There were no discrepancies found in the payroll audit, as we would expect. There were no capital assets assigned. They don't have anything of value over $5,000. They just have a few desks and computers. Performance budget, they stay within their budget. The only thing they've ever been over on in the last few years is jury pay, and that's because our juries have been expanding. We've had more cases with multiple defendants that require more jurors to be called forth. The bank reconciliation was prepared timely each month. I went back and reviewed the last 6 or 8 months since the beginning of the fiscal year, and they were all in good order. The operational responsibilities of this area, they submit the jury box to the state of Georgia for verification and approval. They establish a jury pool each week based on the active courts and types of cases on the dockets. They notify prospective jurors of service dates. They have a jury roll call, satisfy the court's needs with an adequate number of jurors based on the court and the type of trial that's going on. And they arrange payment of jurors for the days served. It may not seem like a lot of responsibilities, but it really is when you consider that they have several thousand jurors that they deal with each month as they go through the year. We have no recommendations today, so it's more good news following on the heels of a wonderful prayer, a great pledge of allegiance. I'm sure the budget approval of the hearing, and also the celebration of the Northside High School Baseball Championship. So I bring forth today some good news. So we don't have any recommendations, and the auditees did not have any response. In fact, they're busy working today, so they're not even here. They're probably watching on TV. That's the situation with that, and it's good. I also wanted to spend about 2 minutes to go over our internal audit activity for fiscal year 19, which is coming to an end. We've done a lot of audits this year, various types and sizes and scopes. We did one of the clerk of council, a corrective action plan and follow-up review, which fell into this year. The Metro Departmental audit, we're just about finished with it, wrapping it up hopefully by the end of this month and presenting soon. The CCG Health and Wellness Center audit was earlier this year. The Board of Elections payroll audit. We had a Cooperative Extension Services annual audit. Crime Prevention Program, the Georgia Appleseed Program, limited scope audit. We reviewed the engineering and codes and inspections process, which is the limited scope audit. We had the Thames bid process limited scope audit review. And now the Jury Manager's Office of Limited Scope Transition Audit, and also will be reporting on the Mayor's Office Limited Scope Audit here in the next couple of weeks. That's what we have completed this year, or will be completing. Our special projects include a review of the CCG government building cost and replacement options that were requested by some council members and the mayor. We also reviewed the sanitation revenues and the operating and capital cost and rate projections for the year as part of the budget review process. And also, we acquired and installed the IDEA data mining software recently. Thank you for that. Our continuing audit activity, we've got, well, one other thing we accomplished, we have to do continuing professional education each year, and this year, Elizabeth and I completed 141 CPE hours. And then just going forward, we've still got some more audits out there that we're working on. Hang away. Let me get those out for you. Lost a page somewhere in the thing. We still have transition audits going on or upcoming for the Bull Creek Golf Authority. We've got to finish up the one on the tax assessor's audit office. We're pretty much through with that one, but we haven't started on the one for the Golf Authority. We also have one that is scheduled for the Clerk of State and Superior Court's office So that one's coming up. And we also have one that's a holdover that y'all may decide you want to cancel, but that's up to you, and that would be on the Trade Center, because it's been a couple of years since we transitioned, and they seem to be doing pretty well. But that's the status of where we are now. At this point, if we had no more audits assigned, I would say we probably would be caught up by the end of the year, but I suspect you'll find something else you want us to look at.
We'll find something for you to do.
I'm sure.
Councilor Woodson.
Mr. Redmond, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and thank you for all you do. I know it's a lot of work and short staff. I wanted to ask you a question so I can get a better understanding. I know on the transitional audits, you have those pending to be completed. If we don't, how does it work if we don't do it immediately after the transition? Because like you just stated a few minutes, we might want to drop the Trade Center because now it's working.
Yeah.
But how will we know if there was an issue or not?
Well, that's why we do them now. We had a major transition several years ago when Mr. Campbell retired. He'd been there 22 or 3 years in that role. We did a very full scope audit of that operation at that time. We looked at their facilities. We identified some things that need to be repaired. They were aware that they need to be repaired, but it's usually with situations like that, it's always a matter of funding, and so they have to do it along as they have the funding. But they were able to get some additional funding, and so his successor took over and moved forward with that. They implemented some changes in their processes and improved those. You know, I think they had really brought it a long way, and I think since the last transition and Haley has taken over Henderson Tillery, they're even moving forward and really getting on an even sounder financial footing with more events and more activities, and seemingly they're running very smoothly. But I don't have a problem going over there and looking, but I don't think it'll need to be a very involved audit at this point if we do that.
My reason for asking was because I had requested the Bull Creek
Right.
Months ago.
It's coming up.
And I just feel that if we wait too long, then who's ever replaced the individual or the chain of command will correct all the deficiencies, and we won't know about it.
I certainly concur with your assessment, Councilor Woodson. That's the disadvantage of only having 2 auditors to do a city this size with some 30 or 40
Okay.
departments and 30 or 40 boards and agencies that we deal with. Normally, for this size operation and this many employees, we'd probably have 10, 12 people in the audit department. We only have 2, so we have to get to them as we can. But I don't think we've let anything fall through the cracks. When we've had something hot that came up that you all wanted us to look at, we've had to stop and go take care of those things, and we'll continue to do that at your direction.
And please, with all due respect, don't feel I think you're dropping something.
Oh, no.
It's just a question because I see it pending, and I see others that we had mentioned after the fact, and they have been completed. So now that I understand the process and understand why, I can see your method of how you do the audits. But it was nothing in disrespect to you or your job. It's just an educational for me to know, or if someone asked me, I would be able to answer them. So thank you very
Well,
much for clarifying.
That's a very good point. We tried to particularly pick out some of the small ones, and this audit today was an example of that. It's a very small office. And likewise, the mayor's office is a small office. It's 4 employees in there. It's a relatively small operating budget. It doesn't take a long time to do those types of audits. When you get into some of our more complex operations, and certainly Public Works is huge, our public safety areas, fire, EMS, or the police department, or the sheriff, or even something like we've been doing Metro, it's a very involved process because that's a business entity. Really, it's an enterprise. And when you look at those things, there are lots of moving parts, and there's no pun intended there. I know the wheels are turning around and those things, but nevertheless, it's a big operation, and there's a lot to look at. And if we haven't been in an area before, we try to go ahead and do a comprehensive audit while we're there, because the way with our size audit staff, it takes us about 10 to 12 years to cycle everything. That really should be done on a 3 to 5 year cycle of everything, but we just don't have the staff to do it. And thus far, we have not committed the resources to do that.
Councilor House?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Should we add the Civic Center to that list?
for a future audit, given that we know we're going through a transition at this point?
We can, and I believe it's almost automatic that those get placed on. Anytime there's a
It is.
change in leadership, it automatically, it goes on
Okay.
their radar. But that's a
Thank you.
great point. Thank you,
If you
sir.
would like to go ahead and approve that today, you can do that.
Okay. We can do that. Make a motion. Councilor House
I
has a
move we add the
motion.
Civic Center then to a transition audit lease.
And motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good.
Okay.
That'll be added to your list.
Thank you.
Mr. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, and I was just going to say to Councilor Woodson, the contract or interim director at Bull Creek will be there until June 30th, and so I think the fact that he has not gone into Bull Creek is good, because typically we go in after the current leadership exits. So after June 30th would be a good time to start to look at Bull Creek.
Councilor Garrett?
Thank you.
Mr. Redmond, I'm not sure, did you already put the Metro on the audit list?
Oh, yes, it's.
Okay, I just want to make sure, and just to confirm, I want that to be more of a performance-type audit.
It
Look
is.
into whether or not we can shift into, smaller transportation as opposed to buses, that type of thing.
Well, we're looking at all
Okay.
aspects of
Okay,
it,
great. Thank you.
Councilor Garrett. And it's going to be a very comprehensive report. There will be a lot of findings and there will be recommendations. Some
Okay.
will be things that you all will probably see fit to adopt, and management will. There'll be some that you say, well, we may need to defer that and
Okay.
look at down the road. And that's not uncommon, but I will assure you, we've looked at pretty
thank
much
you.
every aspect of it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, now I overlooked the minutes a moment ago. We need to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion second to approve the minutes from June 4th meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, Mr. City Attorney?
All right, thank you again, Mayor. First item up for action is the second reading of the operating and capital budget for FY20. It is ready for adoption.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Any discussion? Bruce, please cue it. Please, any of your votes? That is approved.
All right. Item 2, the non-operating budgets. We need to get a motion to amend this. We've been asked by our Finance Department to add $100,000 to Section 20, the T-SPLOST fund, going from $59,100,000 to $59,200,000. If we can get a motion to do that.
Motion is second to amend. Any discussion? All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's amended.
Okay, now we need to go ahead and adopt that ordinance, Mayor.
Motion second to accept, to approve the ordinance as amended. Any discussion? All right, please cue it. Please, any of your votes? It is approved.
That passes. Item 3 is the solid waste collection fee offset to the residential rate for low-income households, ready for adoption.
Motion second to approve. Any discussion? All right, please cue it. And you can end your votes.
That passes. I'll call the next 4 together. This general government employees pension plan, contributions, public safety pension plan, contributions, major disability income plan for FY20, and death benefit escrow plan.
Motion and a second to approve items 4, 5, 6, and 7. Any discussion on any of those? All right, Bruce, can you cue it? You register your vote. And that passes.
All right. That gets the votes we needed at the moment. We've got some zoning hearings now, Mayor. We'll call up the 0 Salmon Road and 7930 Beaver Run Road. Rezoning proposed to go to general commercial with conditions. Proposed use is a commercial property. Planning Advisory Commission recommended denial, and Planning Department approval. So you've got a split recommendation. Mr. Mize is here with the applicants, and I understand we may have some motions to amend or new conditions. But you want to hear from Mr. Mize first, or Counselor Allen, you want to take the lead?
Councilor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor. We've, just so council knows, we've had 2 meetings with the neighbors in the area. One was back in February, and Councilor Judy Thomas and Councilor John House was there. And then last Thursday, we met at Ray Williams' home. He was kind enough to host us there. And Councilor House joined me at that meeting. We were able to talk through some things. And what they have asked is for, obviously, it's a condition from the planning department, but basically no gas stations at this location. So I would like to make 2 motions. The first being no gas stations at this location and no fast food restaurants at this location. If I could have council support in amending this to read that way.
There is a motion to amend the ordinance to disallow gas pumps or gas stations and fast food restaurants.
Right. So you got the uses.
Any discussion to the motion to amend?
We have a
second. We didn't have a second.
I assume that's going to take the place of the condition on the table that's already in the ordinance about the convenience store.
I'm confused about what we're amending. I mean, our application did not have those restrictions in it. We are amenable to the condition that there be no convenience store with gas sales. We were not aware that the no fast food would even be a condition. That's not something that we can agree to at this point.
That's what's in the UDO.
This is in the UDO?
That's right out of the UDO, so that's why
So
it's stated like
the no convenience store with gas sales is already in the ordinance.
Correct. And we have some additional prohibited uses that we will put for council to consider as additional conditions or restrictions on our use. But none of those would be a fast food restaurant.
Okay, well, there is a motion, unless you'd like to withdraw it.
Mayor, if I could, I was stand corrected from the planning department. If council adopts the plan as it's presented from the planning department, they have a prohibition in here: convenience stores with gas sales shall not be permitted.
That's right.
That is the language out of the UDO. So he has suggested that we use that language. So there's not a need for me to make a motion to add that if we pass it as it's recommended from them. So I'd like to change my motion and then have some discussion with Mr. Mize. My motion is to prohibit fast food restaurant on this site.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to add fast food to the prohibited uses.
I'm sorry, Skip, say that again.
There is a motion and a second to add a condition of also disallowing fast food restaurants, as made by Councilor Allen and seconded by Councilor Garrett. Now, discussion on that motion, Councilor Thomas.
Mr. Jones, does the UDO define fast food restaurants?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas, it does not. There is no distinct definition for what a fast food is. It identifies what restaurants are, but certainly not fast food.
Well, I guess I could understand some of the reluctance to have, and I hesitate to name brand names, but I understand the hesitation on McDonald's, for example. Panera Bread, I'm not sure, but they're both fast food restaurants. I'm not sure if you can buy a sandwich in the convenience store, is that a fast food restaurant? According to our planning department, there is no definition. So what's the,
I don't have a definitive answer for you this morning. I wish I did, but I
I
don't.
think this is the first time you've never had an answer.
No, and it won't be the last time either.
Mayor, if I
And I
could,
would also like to hear from Mr. Mize. He said there were some other conditions that you guys have said you would not
Well,
do.
and honestly, if you use a broad term like fast food, I mean, you bring up a really good example of Atlanta Bread, Atlanta Bread Company, and there are a number of others that are, I would consider upper end or high end fast food restaurants that I would love to have next door. And you got to keep in mind too that at Kitten Lake, you've got dozens of fast food restaurants, so the chances of the likelihood of another fast food locating at this location is probably unlikely, but we can't completely wipe it out, the possibility of that being, because that is a legitimate potential use for this property. May not be the use we choose, or that may not be our first use, but it's certainly not one we can take off the table and make this a viable economic venture.
Councilor Thomas, is that all?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Woodson.
Well, Councilor Thomas beat me to it. I wanted to know what was the definition of fast foods too. And I guess I missed that part of it. I didn't know we can delete certain things from the UDO when it's placed on there. But I'll talk to the attorney later, because we've had some situations that have come up, and if I would have known that, I would have stopped so many of them that we have in South Columbus. We're just bombarded with them. But thank you for bringing it to my attention today. But I agree. I think we need to come up with a definition of what fast foods is.
Well, my client, again, trying to satisfy the concerns of the residents. I mean, they've been over backwards on several occasions. They've just told me they would agree not to put a fast food on the corner.
Okay. But we still need to.
I know, we need a definition of fast food, but at the end of the day, I think that is a tremendous concession to make.
Right now, Mayor, your UDO definitions are general restaurant, specialty restaurant, and takeout restaurant. Those are your three. So unless you want to come up with another one, we would need to use one of these.
I think there's a restaurant called it Plus Accessory that's in there as well. I don't know what that is either, but that's not allowed in NC, but it is allowed in GC, and I really don't know what that is. Rick, do you know what that is?
According to this, it's accessory to a hotel or a university or college, similar large-scale use.
Mayor, if I could, at the meeting last week, I had a copy, planning provided me with a copy of all the uses in GC, and we passed that out, and I asked them to let's talk about what uses you prefer to exclude. And, of course, fast food was one of the ones that we talked about. But it doesn't say fast food in our UDO. It talks about restaurant accessory, restaurant general, restaurant specialty, and restaurant takeout. But as Council Thomas pointed out, it includes takeout includes a wide variety of high-class, high-end restaurants that provide good food. And I understand the neighbors not wanting certain types of fast food there, but we can't specifically name or exclude by name a particular fast food. We could get some agreement from the developer that they would not put certain ones in there, but I don't know that we could then again name them in the prohibition.
And the reality of it is, with the Kitten Lake development and all the fast food down there, it's highly unlikely that any of those that they're most concerned about are going to relocate up the street too. But that's one that's kind of taken us by surprise, and we can't make a go of it if we exclude all of the fast food restaurants.
Mr. Mize, did you say that you had a list that you wanted to offer up? Why don't, if it's okay with the counselor, why don't we go through that, and then we'll see if in fact that gets closed?
We'll jump to the back first. How about that then?
Okay.
This is the list that we've come up with. And the first one, which was not there when we first started down this road, was convenience store with gas sales, and this was a direct result from the request and the demands of the residents. And we've taken that off the table. That was our, quote, crowning jewel of the development. The guys had to go back to the drawing board and figure out how they can make this work without the crowning jewel of their development. No adult entertainment establishes, no business which primary business is selling and dispensing and distributing marijuana or byproducts therefrom, no coin-operated laundry, no pawn shop, no tattoo or body piercing shop, and no check cashing office. We're very comfortable with that list, and we think that covers a lot of uses that are objectionable generally to neighborhoods.
Mayor, if I could, Mr. Mize, you said earlier that the developer said they would not put a fast food
on the corner
of Solomon and 80.
Yeah, their present intent is to put some sort of a general merchandise store there. They want to put a retail shop there. And then next door, they're thinking, the thinking is a sit-down style restaurant next door, but you know, the way market forces work, it may or may not be available. A sit-down type restaurant may not be available. They have to have the flexibility to put in something next door like a fast food restaurant in order to make it a go. But they're willing to condition, and we got to come up with an acceptable definition of fast food, and maybe we can Google it and come up with a definition that suits you and suits the developer and suits the residents, you know. But we can work toward something like that as additional condition.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Thomas.
Part of my concern too is that once we put these conditions on this piece of property, and Mr. Mize's clients build their facility there, and then 10 years down the road sell it, the condition remains. Is that correct?
That's right.
So that you could never have those things that we put into the ordinance at that location. Is that correct, Mr. Jones?
You'd have to bring it back to this body and ask for an amendment to remove it.
Yeah, if any changes to any ordinance of that type, you'd have to bring it back to this body for a final determination. That's the only way you could ever get it changed. It maintains its status as a law, as an ordinance for governing this property, and that's what will happen. They would, if anyone wants to come back and wanted to challenge these conditions later on, 10 years down the road, they'd have to go back through the same process, go back to planning advisory. We'd have to advertise again. We'd have to go to council. So once you establish these conditions, they are set. There's no time limit on them. They are set from here on out.
Mr. Jones, did we, and it seems like we changed this. I'm getting to that age where it's hard for me to remember that far back, but at one time I thought conditions were expired after 20 years. Did we change that?
Yeah, that was changed, Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, prior to 2005, that wasn't in effect.
Okay.
The problem we ran into, and we've seen it just recently, where we put conditions on there, and because they ran out 10, 15 years later, the problem still persisted, and we had no way of going back and trying to correct that problem. So we eliminated that back in 2005 for that very reason, to make sure everybody understands the conditions or whatever we establish for that property runs with the property from here on out, with the idea that if you want to change it, you come back to council again and ask for that consideration.
All right, thank you. Councilor Thomas, anything else?
I'm not sure where we are.
I think at this point, we're simply in we're at a point where the proponent is continuing to try to make their points, and then afterwards we'll hear from the residents.
Okay, I'm looking at Councilor Allen's motion has been withdrawn. Is that, do I understand that or not? Is the fast food still on the table or not?
Yeah, I think it's on the table but it's contingent, I want to hear from the residents based on this discussion we're having here. When they come up, I'd like to hear.
And then one more point, if that's still on the table, then I would have to recommend that you use the term takeout restaurant, which is defined in the UDO. It's an establishment that provides ready-to-eat food to be consumed off the premises. If that's a possibility to use, say that's not permitted on the corner, then that may be a possible amendment.
I'll consider that once we get through.
Because the reason I'm asking is because there's another issue that I'd like to bring up with Mr. Mize if we could. Mr. Mize, as you are and your clients are aware, we've been having quite a long discussion with the Georgia Department of Transportation about that corridor. And we are at the point, I think, with some of those discussions that there are going to be some traffic control put into Solomon Road and 80. And one of those, the conditions, or one of the things that we're looking at there are some left and right turn lanes on Solomon Road onto 80. And of course, whatever we do there is going to either cost GDOT or the City of Columbus a good bit of money to do that. If we are looking for a turn lane that would impact the property of your clients, I'm not asking you to give me a definitive answer today, except that would your clients consider working with GDOT and perhaps giving an easement or something to help with that, with those turn lanes there on Solomon Road?
Yes, we would be willing to donate enough land, whatever land's necessary, to put in a right turn lane on the Highway 80. Yes, ma'am.
I do think that we need to be very cognizant of the fact that Mr. Mize's clients have worked very diligently with us, I think, in most everything we've asked them to do. They've tried to find a way to do that, and I personally appreciate your efforts in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Woodson?
Yes, I wanted to ask Mr. Jones. In previous rezonings we have approved, there's been a clause where it says that if the property is sold, it could be reversed back to its original rezoning. Have we stopped doing that? Can we do this to this property?
We've always cautioned council in doing that in terms of making the thing revert back to a previous use. It's a little bit difficult at times, and there's some legalese that goes with that in terms of dealing with that aspect of it. It's not impossible, I guess, and I don't know that we've actually been challenged on it, but we do have some concerns about reversing the zoning at a certain period, say the use stops or whatever. It makes it a little bit difficult to enforce and a little bit difficult on a legal aspect.
It is. We would not recommend that as a general course. We would recommend that you prohibit certain uses, a list if you want to prohibit that, do that, but the reversionary clause, you can run into legal problems down the road.
Okay.
All right, Councilor Crabb?
Thank you, Mayor. Clifton, can you read that definition of takeout restaurant again?
Sure. It says restaurant takeout means establishment that provides ready-to-eat food to be consumed off the premises.
Well, with apps like Waiter and different things like that pretty much is every restaurant in Columbus now. And so I'm not sure if that solves the issue. I'm not quite sure what the issue is. What's the issue with a restaurant or a takeout restaurant being there? Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Mize, why don't you continue, and then we'll just move on through the process and answer any questions as they come up.
I kind of started from the back to work
That's
to
all
the
right.
front. That's okay.
You start anywhere you want.
But I'm George Mize. I'm with the law firm of Page Cranham, and I do represent your applicant, which is Highland Beaver Run. That's a company that's owned by two homegrown developers, Ed French and Craig Greenhall, both of whom are with me. They've done numerous developments in this region, and they have and will continue to have the best interest of Columbus and Hart long after this development is done. The owner of the property is Second Baptist Church of Columbus. Here representing Second Baptist Church is Pastor Mike Reeves, Pastor Gene Brown, and then we have a number of members here with the Baptist Church. Just to kind of introduce you quickly to our development team, our primary engineer is Campbell Engineering out of Greenville, South Carolina, a top-notch civil engineering firm, land planning firm, have numerous clients across the Southeast. Locally, they have Tappan, Moon, Meeks, Mason, and Benson, certainly one of the most well-respected firms in this region. They've also retained Vern Wilburn out of Noonan as their traffic engineer. I think Vern is here. There he is. Of course, Vern's worked on many projects in Columbus and worked with your staff on many, many different occasions. Let me go backwards since we started from the back. Okay. But what we're doing today is we're seeking to rezone approximately 8.8 acres of land located at the southeast corner of the intersection of U.S. Highway 80 and Solomon Road. We're trying to change it from RE1, that's residential estate lots 1, to GC. Our request for rezoning was denied at PAC, but it has been approved by your staff with a condition, and we've already talked about that condition, no convenience store with gas sales. As your staff found, the GC classification is consistent and compatible with surrounding land uses. To the northwest and located at the northwest intersection or northwest quadrant of that intersection is a GC use or general commercial use known as a sandlot. To the southwest corner is also a zone PUD, but the corner itself is actually designated for 15,000 square feet of general commercial use. And 600 feet to the east is a general commercial use. And of course, we're all very familiar with less than a mile away to the west is Kitten Lake commercial development. We believe the GC classification is consistent and it's entirely appropriate for a corridor, U.S. highway corridor like Highway 80. Highway 80 is a classic commercial corridor. I think we would all agree that it's currently zoned RE1. It was not at all appropriate. No one is going to put a house on a 1-acre estate lot along this highway as the current zoning classification would require. To deny, I think we would all agree that the property as currently zoned really has no economic use or value, and I believe to deny this property owner the right to change or rezone this property, whether it's now or whether it's in the future, really imposes on this property owner an unreasonable and disproportionate limitation or burden. What my client proposes to do is to develop a small commercial development to be known as Solomon Crossing. Currently, developers planning to put on the corner lot a retail shop with a sit-down or fast food restaurant next door, and then the remaining land to be used for high-quality general commercial but compatible uses. And just to give you an idea of some of the recent developments that Craig and or Ed have done, I'll just run through a quick list of those or quick pictures of these. And what you'll notice here, these are very attractive developments. And you also notice that these are high-end type retailers, and they're just not going to let any developer develop their project. So we're talking about very competent high-end developers here. I can't identify for you, unfortunately, any prospective tenants or businesses that will be located at Solomon Crossing, but we have had good and fruitful interviews and conversations with regional retailers and restaurateurs. But we got to understand that these guys can't commit anything. They can't spend any time yet or money on due diligence. They can't spend any time or expense on negotiating leases or sales contracts until they know that the property is properly zoned. Rest assured that this development will be attractive and will be family oriented. We've talked about neighborhood commercials, only neighborhood commercial. I don't believe neighborhood commercial is appropriate along this major U.S. highway. You go to your UDO, section 2.3.7, basically says that the purpose of general commercial is intended to apply to areas that are located on major arterial or collector roads, located near intersections of arterial collector roads with major regional state road systems, et cetera. So GC classification is absolutely appropriate for this particular location. All of the other uses up and down U.S. Highway 80 are GC. And also, and I know we've had some conversation with Councilor Allen before this, but also there is a 5,000 square foot limitation in the NC classification that will not allow you to attract good quality, economically viable tenants that would be necessary to keep your development a success with NC, and there's nothing wrong with this. But with NC, you generally attract local, less well-funded developments or uses that really can't withstand the economic storms that are going to come. And without a major tenant, an anchor tenant, to back them up, to attract customers and hold the development together, you often have these smaller tenants fail, which leaves the development vacant, which leads to an eyesore at best. So we believe that you can't actually get the kind of tenant you need, an economically viable tenant you need, in an NC classification with the 5,000 square foot limitation. There's been some discussion about perhaps getting a variance to that 5,000 square foot limitation. The problem there is that there are a lot of differences in the uses between NC and GC. We may have enough space to put them in if we put in a variance, but we're not able, for instance, to put in any kind of minor auto repair shop. I mean, you got minor auto repair shops that are very nice these days. You've got Precision Tune, you've got Meineke, you've got Firestone Service, you've got Jiffy Lube, Take 5. You've got a number of places that are very attractive and would be a fine neighborhood business. And also keep in mind that this area is located in the, I guess it's called the U.S. Highway Overlay. There are a lot of things in that overlay that protect the residents, protect the neighborhood. There are architectural requirements, there are design requirements, there are all kind of requirements that are built into the overlay, landscaping, et cetera, that are built into the overlay with the design purpose to protect the neighborhoods. And y'all have been through that. Y'all have got 6 or 8 overlays across the city for that very purpose. I'm sure you'll also hear that neighborhood commercial is what the comprehensive plan calls for. Well, the comprehensive plan is an excellent planning document, but it's also a living, breathing document. It's got to be interpreted with flexibility, not rigidity. We have to be able to adjust as demographic and development patterns or trends change or develop. The developers have listened to the residents. We've heard their concerns. I'd like to suggest there are a couple of mitigating factors, and there's a condition that we've already looked at that we're willing to impose. From a mitigating factor standpoint, we've got buffering. Well, this project is going to be well buffered. It's going to meet or exceed all of the buffering requirements, not only of the UDO, but it's also going to meet or exceed the buffering requirements for the overlay. For instance, there'll be a 15-foot landscape buffer both along U.S. Highway 80 as well as Solomon Road, together with a berm and or evergreen hedge. Also, in response to concerns by the neighbors, the developers agreed in the southwest corner of the project to leave some existing trees and some vegetation, add some additional plantings to help further screen the development from the neighbors to the southwest. And we believe this is going to be an adequate screening. When you consider brick to brick, they're over 275 feet away from the nearest neighbor's home. A major concern, Councilor Judy Thomas brought up is about traffic. Everybody's concerned about traffic. Well, our traffic engineer, Vern Wilburn, has studied the situation and concluded, quote, the proposed development is not expected to have any significant impact. It's also important to note that when these developers agreed to remove the gas station from the mix, the anticipated trips, the anticipated traffic dropped by more than 50%. U.S. Highway 80 is a major 4-lane highway, as we all know. It's completely and falls squarely under the jurisdiction of GDOT. You guys know there's not one thing can be done to that road, not one thing can be done to improve that road without GDOT approval. You also know, as you've mentioned, the city and the developers as well work tirelessly with GDOT to try to get a signal put in at this intersection. Until the last couple of days, GDOT has maintained the position that there's not enough traffic to warrant a traffic signal. His credit, Councilor Allen's credit, he has bulldogged this issue, and I believe he's made some real headway with GDOT, and that's going to be a big boon to this particular area. The bottom line is the development will not have a substantive impact to traffic. The developer has and will take whatever action necessary to minimize the impact on traffic. Their road improvement plan calls for the emplacement of certain XL, decel lanes, as you mentioned, and this plan has been preliminarily approved by GDOT. Also, as we just mentioned, they are willing to donate whatever land is necessary to put in a right turn lane to further assist or allow traffic flows to improve. We've already talked about the condition. I'm happy to put it back up again, but the developers are willing to prohibit those uses from their development. And keeping in mind, again, that the first one, convenience store with gas sales, when we had the meeting with the residents in February, that was the primary concern that residents had, was about gas sales. We've addressed it. We've gone back to the drawing board, and they're willing to exclude that. This property is serviced by all necessary public facilities and infrastructure. The proposed development is not going to have any adverse impact on those facilities and infrastructure. There's not going to be any additional investment required by the city in that regard. This development will have a positive economic impact, creation of numerous construction jobs during the 3 to 5 year build-out process, together with an increase in business for local suppliers, subcontractors, electricians, plumbers, and others who support the construction industry. And there'll be dozens of new jobs created once the development is up and running. There'll be a substantial increase in the tax base for ad valorem tax purposes, thus providing a substantial economic return to the city and its citizens, again, without adversely affecting any existing infrastructure or requiring any additional investment on the city's part. According to our calculations, we're talking about increasing property tax receipts from about $770 a year to well over $100,000 a year. Similarly, with sales tax, there'll be a substantial increase in sales tax receipts, both in connection with the purchase of millions of dollars of construction materials and then permanently once the development is open and operating. We anticipate about $500,000 a year from just the sale and purchase of construction materials, and we estimate between $300,000 and $500,000 a year annually once the development is open and operating. As we've mentioned before, on February 25th, we had a meeting with the residents. We met them at the Solomon Road Rec Center. The purpose of the meeting was to inform them of our plans, hear their concerns, try to address those concerns. We felt like the meeting was productive, and we have addressed the primary concerns stated at that meeting, and we have agreed to prohibit convenience stores with gas sales from the development. We believe our rezoning request and application meet all the requirements for rezoning. The GC classification is consistent and compatible with surrounding land uses. We have proposed a condition that we think takes care of the residents' concerns and helps minimize the impact of the development. All public facilities and infrastructure located at the site, there's no negative impact of that. We believe this development brings some real benefits to this community in terms of job creation, tax revenue generation, and convenience shopping. Therefore, we respectfully request you approve our application. I'm happy to answer any more questions before I turn it over to Pastor Mike.
Councilor Garrett.
Mr. Mize, the only concern that was brought to my attention, because I did hear about the fast food from one of the residents, and I told him everything y'all showed looked like a very nice, high-end, nice building. The main concern was the smell from fast food. If you do agree to the no fast food on the corner, given the remaining locations where a fast food restaurant could go in, how close would the closest residential area be to those where the fast food restaurants could go?
Walker, that's a good question. I don't know. I do know that the closest one to the southwest is 275 feet. I think Mr. Ray's house is about 350 feet from the development. Whichever way the wind blows, I couldn't say.
Sure.
I'm oftentimes appreciative of Country's Barbecue in places like that. I'm not concerned about the smell so much. But I mean, that's and you can smell Country's 3 miles away. So.
Okay. Doesn't appear to be any more questions, Mr. Mize.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's turn it over to Mr.
Anybody else in favor?
Yeah, give me your name and address again, please, sir.
My name is Mike Reeves, and I'm the pastor of Second Baptist Church, and I'm a lifelong resident of Columbus, Georgia. I was born in Columbus, raised in Columbus, educated in Columbus, all the way from Apex Road in North Highland near Fox Elementary School to where I live now at 5024 Trussell Avenue since 1973. I want to give you an idea of where I went to school, a little bit about me today to understand why I'm passionate about this. I attended Fox Elementary School, which is just a few blocks from the church. Back when they called it Daniel Junior High School, I went there. Now they're middle schools, but I went to junior high school. And as Councilor Allen said, I graduated from Jordan High School in 1971. And when the Northside guys come up, I got chills on my back because you're right, Councilor Davis, I remember that day very clearly. I've been a pastor at Second Baptist Church, which is located at 2800 2nd Avenue, not far from the Government Center. Been there since 1903. Yes, sir, been there since 1903. I've been there 22 years. Actually founded in 1903, so it has been a part of that community since 1903. And I've been was there until 2004. we felt God leading us to relocate from Second Baptist Church on Second Avenue to our Solomon Road property, which we called Beaver Run. We were all excited about it. The church voted 100%, and it was our intentions to move there. But in God's timing, He has not seen fit to do that. And people change, places change, visions change. So we voted to sell our church where we were at Second Avenue, take that money that we had sold that, buy the land and pay for the land at Beaver Run, and pay and build that church and be debt-free when we started. That was the plan. We saw a lot of our residents out there, and they were excited about us coming, and I was really disappointed when we weren't able to go. But God has His plans for our lives, and we're sure we listen to those things. And so after 3 unsuccessful attempts to sell the church, our last one, we had a benefactor in Columbus that was willing to buy the church and give it to the buyer that was wanting to buy it. And after about 3 months, we got word back that they were not going to be able to buy the place. So the benefactor in Columbus that was going to give us the money for the church did not, because he was not buying that. So it's not like we are just trying to sell property to sell property. So I wanted to let you know that today that we really intended God to move us to Solomon Road and Beaver Run and be a good church for the people out there. But we are where we are today, still at Second Baptist on 2800 Second Avenue, because I believe that's where God wants us to be right now. We make a significant impact on our city, and I stand here today strongly supporting your vote for rezoning this property so Mr. French and Mr. Greenhow can buy this land, build their places on that land, and so that we can take the monies from that sale, pay our loan off, which we've been paying on since 2004, pay our loan off, take the rest of the money that we have, and invest it in the downtown ministry at Second Baptist Church. And if we can do that, we're making a huge impact in our city, in that area in which we live. So I thank you today for your time. I thank you today for your support on the rezoning of this so that we can continue to do the ministry that we do at Second Baptist Church. And I want to ask thank you again for allowing me to be here. And I have one more person that would like to come speak just a moment and give you some of the things that we do right now in ministry where we are. And we would really love to do it, but the only way we're going to be able to continue to do the ministry like we do ministry is to sell this property so we won't have that payment each month and invest the rest of the money into the ministry. It's not going anywhere but right back into helping folks in our neighborhood. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. Brother Gene.
Good morning. My name is Gene Brown. I'm the executive pastor of Second Baptist Church, 2800 Second Avenue. Thank you for hearing this zone application, first of all. I know it takes a lot of time away from other important matters you have, but this is important to Second Baptist, and it should be important to this city. Brother Mike gave you a brief history of Second Baptist Church and the process that has transpired since this application was submitted. What I'd like to do is give you a little bit of brief overview of our ministry that Brother Mike mentioned. And this ministry has direct impact on the sale of why we didn't move to Solomon Road, but why we're still at Second Baptist Church. It's called the Helping Hands Ministry. This ministry is where we're able to provide local communities' needs when it comes to food and clothing. Daily, we give out 100 snack bags and bottled water. One day a month, we're able to give out bags of groceries, along with clothing and hygiene items. We give out between 65 and 70 of those bags in a two and a half hour period. 2018, we touched more than 25,000 people in our local community, 25,000. While these numbers don't seem to be large individual, but by the year's end, that was 55,000 pounds of food that we gave out. We've been able to accomplish this by partnering with Feeding the Valley. Our cost for that 55,000 pounds of food was a little over $8,000. Retail would have been over $92,000. The vision Brother Mike had in 2004 with the purchase of the property at Solomon Road was no doubt God sent. We've seen the vision change, though. Our community is around 2800 2nd Avenue. With this approved rezoning, we'll be able to continue with this very important Helping Hands ministry. I'd like to thank you for your time this morning and for consideration of this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, if that's all on the applicant side that wants to be heard, we'll move to the neighbors. Anybody in opposition or concerned neighbors, if you will, raise your hand and come on up.
And the only thing, by the way, I want to thank all of you for being here and for the attentive way that you have listened to the proponent. The only thing that we would ask, council would ask you to do is if you have a spokesperson to come up and speak for the group. If you want to, if multiple people want to speak, that's fine. We would simply ask that you try to not be redundant and touch on other topics that may be of concern to you. Thank you. Welcome, ma'am.
Give me your name and address, please, ma'am.
My name is Geraldine, and I live in Columbus, Georgia. And since I'm single, I'm not giving out all that information. All I want to know is it legal for somebody to come in? I've owned my property for over 20 years, and now they're coming in, taking my underground cable and my electricity away. Can they do that?
Mayor, I don't know if she's on this topic.
I don't think this development is this the result of this developer? They have not, I don't think they've said.
No, I'm just asking a question.
Oh, no, ma'am, this is a public hearing for this particular item.
Mm-hmm. Can you answer that question, though?
We will have, I'll ask if we can get Tiasha to get your name, and we'll get with you after the meeting and try to see if we can get you some answers. Thank you.
All right. Back to the zoning at hand. Give me your name and address, please, ma'am.
My name is Sonia Canterbury, and I represent the Hickory Grove Solomon Road Neighborhood Coalition. And I'm here today to present you a petition that I have 147 names on so far. There may be some other people that haven't gotten to sign it, that you can sign it before I turn it in. It is to keep those areas as neighborhood commercial and not convert them to general. We want to keep it with the comprehensive 2038 plan that so many citizens in this area spent hours and hours and months working on, and we feel like they just want to throw it out and not use it. They had a plan for Columbus, and it's quite impressive. It's about 300 and something pages long for the whole city. I was impressed with that. This land is in very close proximity to residents. Those residents moved out there to get away from general commercial, and we have so much general commercial right in that area further down. Midland Commons hadn't even gotten quite off the ground. They just moved dirt mostly. And we see a vision for our neighborhood that is neighborhood commercial, smaller areas. I heard them talk about trying to get big anchor places. They can't really tell us who's going to come there. But according to the statistics for the U.S., those big places are slated 7,500 or so this year to close. That's up from 2,000. Last year it was 2,000 less. So the developments that we see that are smaller, though people do move out, somebody else moves in, and it gives them a chance to start a smaller business, a neighborhood business, things that we need on the corner. We don't need an auto parts store. We don't want an auto parts store, a tire store. And by the way, there's a special exception that you have to meet on general commercial for a fast food with a drive-in. I also asked that, since we were told the other night by Mr. Allen that we would have a traffic light there, that was going to take about 2 years, but there would be a traffic light and some alterations at that intersection, which is extremely dangerous. We all thank God that we got across the intersection every day. We have to go out there, particularly in the peak hours. But they did a traffic count apparently to get that traffic light put in, and those numbers are not included in the trip distribution report that was presented for PACS. So you've got, do you have more traffic coming? I would think maybe you do, since they authorized a traffic light there. That changes the numbers that are going to come there. And already with 2 entrances on their first plan coming in on Beaver Run and 1 on the side of Salmon Road, you had more traffic coming into Salmon Road than you did into the 2 entrances on the front. Now their proposal has 1 entrance coming in and a proposed potential entrance to access an owner's property behind the fast food restaurant, which I will point out they have on their map is at the far end, the southeast end. And they have, I don't know if y'all have those maps in front of you or not, but that's just the potential down at the end. So that's very confusing. But I urge you to please review those numbers because already that was a problem with increased traffic on Salmon Road. I just beg with you to think about the impact on this neighborhood. Would you want this kind of development right in front of you? Because it's going to make a major impact for us forever. There are many, many properties that have gone up for sale. Some of them used to have just a little owner's sign, a handmade sign. Now real estate people are representing them because some don't know what to do. They're older. They want to get out of the property before commercial comes. Other ones are wanting to cash in on commercial, buying their property. So there's a lot of planning, I guess, that's going on, or people trying to avoid that before it gets too bad, all the way down to the Chevron station. In fact, Mr. Greenhaw is the agent on that property down at the end by the by the Chevron station. We were told that there's not a big difference in neighborhood and commercial and general commercial. However, we don't see it that way. There's twice the kinds of things that you can put on general as you can put on neighborhood. And yes, it is smaller scale, but we think that's better suited to the needs of our neighborhood. Smaller retail spaces would give the entrepreneur, which you've mentioned many, many times in the comprehensive plan, a place to set up business, to grow, and to serve those smaller needs. Most of the things they're developing in Columbus now are not neighborhood commercial. They're big box stores, and look at all those big stores that are empty, and they have sat empty, some of them for several years. We wanted to be included in some of the plan, but to my knowledge, the only people that the developers met with before all this got started, and we saw anything, community meetings or anything, was one person who owns the land that is next door to this development, and that's Alton Duncan. But we really didn't have any sort of input at all. Nobody wanted to know what we wanted or what we thought that our neighborhood needed. We don't want to be, if you just don't let the 2038 comprehensive plan hold, if it's strictly a living document and you can change it anytime you want to, then why did we spend all that time on it? And we're subject to any developer that comes through and says, this is what you're going to have. And most of the time, we can't find out exactly what it is. By the way, there is an SE exemption that you have to have for a fast food restaurant in general commercial. So I don't know how that fits into your definition of what's a fast food restaurant. Does it have a drive-through or whatever? But the information that you have on your planning site says that you have to have an SE, a special exception, which has never been mentioned here today. This is a quote from your information. By utilizing the city's comprehensive plan and enforcing the current zoning districts, we can shape our community in a positive manner. I hope you don't forget that. And by adhering to the future land uses in the comprehensive plan, our city and our neighborhoods will be able to develop and grow in a positive, thoughtful, meaningful direction. Please don't just throw anything up there just because somebody will buy it or somebody will rent it or somebody wants to build it and make money. I asked about the management, who was going to manage that development, and was told that each person that bought a parcel would manage their own. So I'm not sure exactly what that means either. There has to be some kind of cohesive management somewhere. I understand Woodruff manages the Kitten Lake one, and they look like they do a good job of that. We respectfully submit these names. Some of these people are here, but a lot of them work, and they can't come. So respect their wishes too. And thank you for your thoughtful consideration to deny this application to rezone to general commercial. And please think about keeping it as a neighborhood commercial, something that it's a gateway to our neighborhood. It will be there for a long, long time. And we don't really have, Midland is just everywhere. It's always been kind of a big nebulous rambling something, but we don't have something that defines it as this is Midland. So I look at it and I think, where are you going to build the churches? Where are you going to build the daycares? Where are you going to expand and build those things as more and more people move out that way? I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your consideration. And I'll hand these in to you and see if anybody else wants to sign them.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am, if you hand the petition to the clerk, that'd be fine. Anybody else want to come up now?
I'd like to, my name is Ola Doss. I lived in that neighborhood for 19
Come up to the podium, please, Mr. Doss.
Come on, Mr. Doss, to the mic.
I've lived there for 19 years. I moved to that neighborhood because at the time I was in the Army and my son was aged to play Little League baseball. And so I really enjoyed the neighborhood. Now, if I didn't really understand everything that the neighbors had concerns with until recently. I would have, if I didn't know the difference between commercial and neighborhood commercial, I would have said, and I think I did sign it, as neighborhood commercial, right? But now, when I went to this meeting here on Friday at Mr. Williams' house, the discussion that was there was excellent. We had two city councilmen, Councilman Allen, Councilman House, and they did a very good job of making everybody understand that the city has the authority to put some exceptions on there. But my main, and that is, of course, something very important, but my main concern is traffic. When I moved there 19 years ago, there was very little traffic on the J.R. Allen, okay? Now, that is a very, very, very unsafe intersection. I've talked to the GOD road people. I've talked to the city road people. Allie, a very nice engineer down there, for the last 2 years about what the remedies are. I've actually called the newspaper, talked to the reporters about how dangerous it is. If you're coming up and ready to turn left, if you're coming from the west and you're going to turn left into Solomon Road, there's a hill there. If you're not careful, you're going to get hit. Absolutely. I've seen so many misses, near misses there. And you have all these people coming from the Northern Little League in there. You have the school back behind there, down just a little ways back on the left. And so it's a terribly dangerous situation. My understanding is that, yes, they will be putting in a light. They first considered an R-cut, but they have too many R-cuts. So you don't want any type of business on that corner there that's going to bring more traffic into the area. First of all, the light's going to build up a line of traffic coming from the restaurants, the fast food places, and back and forth to the area, the industrial area out there. 3 times a day, morning, noon, and evening, you can hardly get out of Solomon Road or get into it because of all that traffic from the industrial area rushing down to eat at lunchtime or coming or going home. So if I could take my name off of that first one that I signed, I now support general commercial because I understand that this is a neighborhood that's not always going to be residential. I have compassion for the people that live there, that want to get what they want to get done, and I understand why. But it's just, things change, and this is the main area that's growing in Columbus. So my recommendation is go with general commercial. Just be careful what you put anywhere near that intersection. A restaurant bringing a lot of people in, whether it's fast food or any kind, is really going to complicate the situation. So thank you for listening, and I've loved Columbus. I really have enjoyed living here, and I thank you all for what you're doing for the city.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. Come on up, sir.
Thank you. My name's Alton Duncan, 6232 Solomon Road. My family has been an adjacent landholder to this property for about 70 years, so I'm very, very familiar with it. I've talked to a couple of the counselors, talked to the developers, But I do have one item of clarification that has just recently come to me that I would like to clarify. The way the staff report is written on page 1, the exception, the conditional exception there is convenience stores with gas sales shall not be permitted. That's a rather undefined way to state that. My question is, a gas station without a convenience store, i.e. these big gas stations that you see that's just got a payment kiosk in the middle of them, would that also be something that you would not do? Okay.
I don't mean to.
No, go ahead.
We went with this is because this is the language in the UDO. There'll be no gasoline sales, period. We can add that to the condition if you'd like.
That's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, come on up.
Hey, my name's Jessie Stadnick. I live on Solomon Road, as well as my mom, and we would just like to, we appreciate the consideration for the stoplight, as well as all the other things that you guys are willing to not develop, but we're asking more for smaller entities as far as maybe boutiques, things like that, maybe, just not the massive amount of traffic that a drive-through would cause, things like that. We have a mile to a mile and a half down the road, numerous fast food restaurants, the Walmart, the Kitten Lake area, the Gateway, the new complex that's going down or going up on Gateway. So we don't feel that going just a little bit more up the road is going to make a difference to put in yet another AutoZone or another Burger King or another, Chick-fil-A or however nice it looks. We're just asking that we, focus on maybe not so much an antique shop but smaller retail type entities, not so much worried about the smell from a fast food restaurant, but the traffic. We are like a cut-through for a lot of the two previous, whatever you call the car cuts that were put in. So, we have a lot of people. We also have Northern Little League across the street. So we'd like to attract people from there as well, parents, kids, whatever. But just nothing that's quite as commercial as restaurant, things of that nature. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Good morning. My name is Ray Williams, and I live on 6274 Solomon Road. My property line is approximately 200 feet from this property line. Whatever is built there is going to be my next door neighbor. I want to say we're not here to oppose the Second Baptist Church. We wanted that big, pretty church there. That would have fit wonderfully for our neighborhood. We know it's not going to be. We're not here to oppose Mr. French, Mr. Greenhow. They have a right to build something there, and we support that and appreciate that. We're just here to ask you to help us support the integrity of this neighborhood. I built a house out there 31 years ago, and it's already been alluded to, we've had very little traffic. We never envisioned this. We just didn't have the foresight to do it. But many in this audience over here have lived out there a lot longer than I have. We're not a transient neighborhood. Most of these people have been there 30, 40 years up and down this road. And we hope to, most of us are retired, and we hope to live there the rest of our lives. This has already been stated, but the staff report from the planning department, if you have a copy of it in front of you, I have a copy of it right here. But they say that the traffic is going to increase by over 1,000 trips a day. And that may change depending on what's built there, of course. But our main concern is traffic congestion and safety. I believe that there's a representative here from our neighbor on the other side of the street from the Northern Little League. They have the same concerns that we do about their families and their children. They come through there every day, however many months of the year they're over there, 6 months of the year. And we hope to get this traffic light. That would be a wonderful thing for all of us. But we just can't stand much additional traffic in this area. It's overwhelming us out there right now. And the speed limit on Beaver Run, if you don't already know this, is 45 miles an hour. I'm not a traffic expert, but I've been going through there for a long time, and the average speed on that road is 55 plus, and there are a lot of these tractor-trailer trucks, especially in the evening at night, that are coming through there at 65 and 70 miles an hour. And it is so dangerous. Somebody's going to lose their life there if we don't get a traffic light there. And we don't want that to happen, but we just want to see something that will make our neighborhood that we can live with and be happy with there. This has been alluded to also, but we have the big development that Jack Wright and Marty Flournoy are doing in the 80-something acres on the old Swift Mill. We've got all the fast food, all the development down there. That is a commercial area. We recognize that, and we're glad it's near us. But our area is not commercial. We're a residential area, and I know it's going to be, the zoning is going to be changed, and we recognize that. But we just ask that it be changed to something that we all can live with. The developers were very nice to work with us on the service station. That was our main concern. That was our number one concern. And we're not here to nitpick and pick and choose and give you a long list of what we don't want there. We just want something that will make our neighborhood better and hopefully that we can all be happy with. But fast food is a big concern because it's open 16, 17 hours a day. And as Councilor Garrett alluded to also, and I think George Mize did also, I love barbecue and I love to smell it. But I don't want to smell it 365 days a year, all day and all night. You can see I like to eat. And this is say, I don't want to smell Hardee's or McDonald's around the clock either. But I'm kind of joking, but I am serious. I'll quickly say that my friend and I went to the new restaurant in front of the mall, the Cookout, the other night. After the meeting that Councilor House and Allen were at, we didn't have anything to eat. It was late. We had a quick burger. First time we'd been in there, we walked out in the parking lot, and she said, something's on fire. That car's on fire. We were parked on the north side in the mall parking lot, and it was smoke everywhere. And I walked over there and looked back, and the smoke from the Cookout, evidently they cook it like the Burger King does. There was a south wind, and it was coming over and forcing the whole parking lot was a fog out there of greasy hamburger smoke. That's one thing we're concerned about, and I appreciate Councilor Garrett bringing that up. But there's some other people that want to speak, and I think we've been through about everything. But I will say you are familiar, and you know that the PAC group that we met with a while back turned this thing down on a 5-2 vote. And I just ask you to take our neighborhood in consideration, put yourself on this road, and what we're going to face in the years to come. Now, we're all getting older. There are not a lot of young residents out there, and we have to cross that busy intersection every day. But I thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity to come before this council and speak, and thank you for hearing. And I want to give a special thanks to our councilors, Allen and Mr. House, John House. They have really worked on this thing, and both with the developers and us too, and we appreciate them no matter what the outcome is. But thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. My name's Will Thompson, and I'm the president of Northern Little League. I'm going to be very brief and very, very short. We have over 500 kids that are playing baseball out of Northern Little League this week. God willing, we're going to finish up an all-star tournament that's been seeing about 1,000 people out at Northern Little League this week. And I'm not real interested in what's going on as it relates as a development as the president of Northern Little League. What I'm most focused on is the traffic count. We have been told that the reason there's not a red light up there is because there has not been enough deaths at that intersection. How many deaths do we need to have is what I want to know. And I don't think that's accurate, but we need a red light there bad. Skip, I think you played ball out there too. It is very dangerous. People go the back way to not cross that intersection. I live out that way, and I tell my wife to go the other way so that she doesn't have to go through the intersection. We have 500 kids, like I said, and we have numerous times have had people complain about the traffic and whatnot. So I'm here urging for the traffic light. And I know that's not this place, but with this going on, we really need to have that. So that's my 2 cents. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Will. Councilor Allen.
Will, could I just kind of give you a little update before you go? We had a meeting last week with the DOT, and they have given us the information that there will be no more arc cuts on 80, and that they have retested or count traffic and that kind of thing. There are multiple warrants that an intersection has to meet before a signal is allowed.
Right.
And so the most recent study, we met the warrants for that intersection. So the city and the state will be partnering with installation of a light, and it'll be sometime, there are a couple more hurdles it's got to go through. It's got to pass, be approved by the commissioner of DOT. So we can't say definitely, but it looks looking good for us to get a light at that intersection. But I just wanted you to know that updated information, so you could pass that on to your board and your members out there. Excellent. And I'll be glad to do that when I'm out there too.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councilor Barnes.
Well, I'm just glad that just sitting up here and just listening to the overriding concern with the traffic. I've seen John shaking his head about it being dangerous. I've heard things about the number of children, so I'm really glad, Gary, that you're on something like that. But Tisha, are you here for or against this? What?
No, I'm here because you asked me to come for the public agenda.
Okay. I didn't see your name on it, though.
I don't know. Because you had made that call.
I know I'm at, but let me not hold this up, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I just knew she was here, and I didn't see her on the public agenda.
She's not listed. If she wants to wait till the end of the meeting, we'll try to give her a few minutes.
Okay, appreciate it, Mr. All right.
My name's Bill Ward, William H. Ward. I think I'll be the last one to speak on behalf of the neighborhood. I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney for about 4 years. Before that, I was a registered professional engineer working with some of the same issues that the developers are working with, particularly with environmental impacts. My focus was in industry right here in Columbus. There are two basic issues that have come out in this whole discussion. One, the rezoning will have a massive disruptive impact on the quality of the life of the neighborhood that lives in the vicinity of this development. And two, as eloquent as Mr. Mize has been in advocating for his clients, I haven't heard a definitive plan as to what they intend to put in with this development. And the neighbors are very concerned with this. Whether the rezoning is neighborhood commercial or general commercial, and the neighbors are in favor of neighborhood commercial because of the connotation. The connotation is that somehow neighborhood commercial will fit in with the quality of the neighborhood as it is, and as evidenced by the reason they bought their houses where they did. There's an old expression in building that I heard once: measure twice, cut once. The neighbors are not against the development of this property. We want Second Baptist Church to be able to sell this property and get what they want for this, and put that issue behind them because they weren't able to do what they wanted to do with the property. And we would like to see you put in something that's going to be successful. And to do that, I think they need to take one step further, meet with the residents, brainstorm what kind of businesses should be put in there, and do that due diligence, and come up with a plan that comports not only with the 2038 comprehensive plan, but the Unified Development Ordinance, from which this well-planned overlay district for Highway 80 has been promulgated and is part of the city ordinance right now. So without belaboring this, I would like to commend this to the city council for your consideration, and let's come up with a plan that not only meets the letter of the UDO and the comprehensive plan, but one that meets the spirit of development of this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Any other questions around the council table? Did we have a motion to address?
All right. There is a motion and a second.
Are you talking about Councilor Allen?
To the, yes, to the motion. Councilor Allen. Sorry, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Clifton, would you give me the language that you mentioned earlier?
Oh, well, let me get to that. On the restaurant takeout. The restaurant takeout definition, it means establishment that provides ready-to-eat food to be consumed off the premises. That's the only definition that we have currently in the code for that type of activity.
And that definition, at least to me, is so broad that it excludes many, just about every restaurant, because I think pretty much now you can go anywhere and get takeout.
I agree.
So I'm at a quandary on what to do. Mr. Mize, what would you suggest? What have y'all talked about as far as agreeing to?
In all honesty, we've been hit cold with this additional condition. But my clients have agreed not to put a fast food restaurant, and maybe we can come up with a definition on the corner. And I think that's a pretty reasonable compromise. But I mean, without the ability to put a fast food restaurant on the rest of the development, Gary is going to doom the development to failure, in our opinion. Now, we may can get by with some sit-down restaurants, and we hope to. I mean, that's our plan too. But they are willing to put some sort of restriction on the corner as it relates to fast food restaurants.
But what language do we use for that? Are you okay with the language that City Attorney mentioned for the corner?
I do think, as you suggest, it is too broad, but you could put, something like, only for takeout, or, predominantly for takeout, or something like that, primarily to be consumed off premises.
If I may suggest, it sounds like there needs to be some wordsmithing and there needs to be some discussion so that
over the next week.
Mr. City Attorney, I yield to you, but why can't we just let this continue and be on second reading and work between now and that second reading on some of this language? That would not be or would it be a material change that would put it back on first reading?
No, you can do that. We need to either look at a square footage limitation, some kind of drive-through limitation.
And at that
you
point,
can leave it on first reading for now if you want to.
And just continue it on first reading for the next?
Right. And then if we come back.
I just think that there's a lot of discussion that still needs to be had based on some of the new recommendations. It may be as simple as just putting no drive-through windows, no drive-through windows for any kind of food.
Yeah. Well, one thing I had talked about or thought about and wrote a note on was restricting the distance of any certain type fast food, drive-through, whatever we're going to define it as, from the intersection.
Yes.
I don't know what that number, I'm not sure what that number.
From the corner lot.
Right,
correct.
I'm not sure what that number would be.
Okay. We will agree not to put a restaurant of any sort on the corner, the 1 acre corner lot.
So
you can't get any broader than that.
So distance-wise, you would agree to
1 acre.
No restaurant within 1 acre of the intersection.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you help me with that wordsmithing, Mr. City Attorney?
And that's pretty broad to say no restaurant within, on the 1 acre at the corner. And I would say we define that as a 1 acre square, 208, 209 feet by 209 feet.
Right.
That's a big compromise.
Well, we could limit it,
We could add that, Clifton, as an additional condition or
Right.
part of the prohibited use.
We would-
Restaurant,
we would like to recommend that you consider that as condition number 2, and we could say, no restaurant use, accessory, general specialty, or takeout shall be permitted on this corner comprising 1 acre. We'll figure that language out.
no, and that's fine, that's acceptable to my guys, and I guess not to speak against my side of the deal, but don't forget the other prohibited uses that we're willing to put into the condition as well. I think that goes a long way toward protecting the neighborhood, even if we're no longer there, for the future owners. I would think that adult entertainment establishments need to be prohibited. I mean, there's no question about that. And several of the others. I mean, we have thought long and hard about what to put in that list with the idea to protect to meet their concerns and protect the neighborhood. And so I don't want to forget that. So if you could amend your motion to include those additional prohibited uses, that would be good.
Yeah, you read my mind. Mr. Mayor, if I could, I want to amend my original motion to include the language that the city attorney just summarized regarding no restaurants within 1 acre of the intersection.
Okay.
And then I have a second amendment to include the listed of prohibitions that they presented earlier.
All right. So the original motion has been amended by the maker of the motion to incorporate the language specifying that corner acre.
Did you second it?
And restaurant prohibition, and to include the list as offered up by the developer. Is that correct? All right.
If I might, just so we'll know what we're talking about in the quarter, it's not going to be, 10 feet by 2,000 feet.
Right,
It
right.
needs to be a 1/4 acre square.
Right.
I mean, an acre square, not a 1/4 acre, an acre square. That way, we can at least define the area.
Right.
The motion again is no restaurant.
Well,
on that
no
corner
restaurant,
acre.
something like this, no restaurant use, accessory, general, specialty, or takeout shall be permitted on a 1 acre square adjacent to the intersection of Solomon and Beaver Run Road. And then number 3 will be this prohibited list
Yes,
Okay.
of uses.
yes.
Councilor Garrett, I believe, offered up a second. Is there any discussion to the motion? Yes, ma'am. Councilor Thomas.
I just have a question for Mr. Mize. How large is that parcel?
8.8 acres, almost 9 acres.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor House, is that to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Just have a question before we take a vote on the amendment or on the proposal. Would we be better served to delay this first reading, as I think the city attorney mentioned earlier, to allow the developer and some group of citizens to discuss what those other options might be, or do we need to drive ahead?
I don't see any reason to delay.
Is that the?
Can't.
That's at the discretion of council. Councilor Davis? Well, you disappeared. Where'd you go? I've got Councilor Crabb.
No, I was going to just say it's a little, it's still a little perplexing to me. I mean, I tend to agree with you about this being a broader discussion, especially as it pertains to relooking at the UDO, but I'm not really sure what everybody is anticipating here, but and I'm just sitting here, there could be food services there. I mean, everybody knows that regardless. It's just not takeout, whatever takeout is defined as, but there are a lot of other services that can go there as well in the food and beverage industry. So I hope everybody understands that.
I think restaurant is a defined term under the UDO, isn't it?
Thank you, sir. Counselor Crabb?
Thank you. My concern is with what you recommended, them getting back together and discussing it some more. It seems like the goalpost keeps moving. It seems like the developers have listened to the citizen, to the residents, and they, took out the gas station, and they're willing to compromise on the restaurant. And then if we open it back up for discussion, what else is going to come up that they're going to, want the developer to do? I don't want to micromanage developers in that way. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. Nobody else in the queue, so we have a motion on the table. And please don't make me restate it.
Real quick. Sorry about that.
Mr. City Attorney, going to let you have it.
All right, I don't have that little list, but this is condition 2 would be no restaurant use, accessory, general, specialty, or takeout shall be permitted on the 1 acre square adjacent to the intersection of Salmon and Beaver Run Road. And then the particular short list, those uses shall also be prohibited. They are adult entertainment establishments, business, right.
And I think the key is that this is just a vote to add this as a condition. This does not approve the request. That will still be considered at the next meeting. So this is simply to amend it. All right? Any further discussion regarding the motion? All right, all those in favor of adding those 2 conditions, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that is, those 2 conditions.
Okay, now, with that prohibited list, number 1 is gasoline pumps. Do we still need the condition 1, or do we want to reword it?
I would think you could just
The
take
developer is fine with adding convenience stores with gas sales or gasoline sales. Pumps, yeah. I mean, whatever y'all call, that's not our intent, is to sell gas with a kiosk. It's not our
Well, if we're going to do that, I would recommend condition 1 be no convenience store with gas sales or standalone gas pumps shall be permitted.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Yes, ma'am. We've got some time to continue to have dialogue about this particular
There's only one corner.
proposal.
There's only one corner.
So this, they have offered up one corner. The way it stands right now, it's just that one corner.
And that's, just to be clear, Skip, that is the only corner on the project.
But, no, I got it. Well,
Okay.
yeah. But, so there still is time for further discussion before this comes to a vote at the next meeting. And I tell you, based on some of the confusion, I would recommend, and I can almost guarantee that your counselor, who has been the hardest working guy in show business lately, trying to get this thing kind of worked out, he will be in touch with you and trying to figure out, make sure that everybody's comfortable with where we are.
When is the second reading?
Next week? Next week.
All right? Counselor Thomas.
Mr. Mayor, as I recall, and maybe the clerk can help us, we don't have another meeting until the second week of July.
No, we have one this.
Next week.
How did I miss that one?
You haven't yet.
Okay, got it. I'm just concerned that we not delay this any more than,
It'll be next week.
Tuesday.
we've been dealing with this now since at least February, so,
I think it was December when it was first filed.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Counselor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor. Ray, why don't you and I talk, and we'll try to set up another meeting with the neighbors and talk through what's going on today and where we go from here at your convenience. It's fine with me if it's okay.
Well, is
with
the
me.
hearing still?
That's your discretion. I mean,
Yes, sir, you may come to the podium, and the public hearing is still being held.
I'll make this very brief. I know we don't have an exact designation for fast food, but I think everybody agrees, we look at fast food to be a McDonald's, Hardee's, Chick-fil-A type place. We'd love to have a local restaurant there, a Panera Bread, something like that. We're talking, I know it's no definition, maybe we can put it into the city, whatever the correct term is, but I think we don't want a fast food restaurant there. It's no different if it's on the corner or moved down 200 feet. And that's all I had to say. I think the feeling of our group, I don't think that will satisfy us, just moving it. That hadn't been, we had never said we don't want it on the corner.
Thank you.
But anyway, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Sir. All right, well, I think this public hearing has been held, Mr. City Attorney.
all right. Well, as amended, we'll bring all three of these conditions with the ordinance back next week at 9 o'clock, and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
It'll be on second reading next week. Thank everybody for being here for that public hearing.
Thank y'all. We've got two more, I believe.
One day. Give them a...
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, we've still got some business to conduct. Mr.
Okay, we've got another zoning public hearing, Mayor. The next one up is 2214 Patty Avenue, going from general commercial to single-family residential 3 for detached dwelling. Evelyn Montgomery, petitioner. You here? Okay, they are here. Let's see if we've got any questions. This is recommended for approval. Council have any questions?
Doesn't appear so.
All right, anybody in the audience want to be heard on the Montgomery application? Don't see any hands, so they're going to take a vote on this next week at their 9 o'clock meeting. All right, see you then. Thank y'all for being here. Okay, Mayor, the item 10 on our agenda is the annual ordinance providing for the establishment of taxing districts, urban services, and business improvement districts, levy and collection of taxes for year 2019. No change from previous year on Urban Service District 1, is that correct, Ms. Finance Director? Okay, she's nodding in the affirmative. Any questions here? Anybody in the audience want to be heard on that? All right, we'll bring that back at 9 o'clock next week for a vote on the millage rate. Again, just a note on the school district millage, we'll probably have that ordinance in July. They will not be able to certify their millage over to the clerk until the end of June. Our next item, Mayor, is the resolution requesting sales tax information from Georgia Department of Revenue pursuant to OCGA 48-2-15, and it's ready for adoption.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor, will you want to cue it, Bruce? If you would, please enter your votes. It's passed.
That passes. All right, we've already covered the baseball team. Mayor, we've got one add-on. Everybody should have it at the table. This is a resolution of the Columbus Council declining to support reimposition of the Special District Transportation Sales and Use Tax, known as T-SPLOST, for the purpose of funding transportation infrastructure improvements in the River Valley region. And that is ready for adoption or any comments.
Move approval of the resolution.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any discussion? If not, we'll just. Yeah. We can add that. Put it back in. All right, well, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we'll ask the two counselors that had to step out, we'll ask them if they would lend their vote to that so that this will be a unanimous request from this council. All right?
Here's the Mayor Pro Tem.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem, we just went through the add-on resolution for the T-SPLOST renewal, declining support. I didn't know if you wanted to add your vote to the record. Okay. You just left? Okay.
There you go.
We just took a vote on the resolution declining support of the T-SPLOST continuation. Didn't know if you wanted to add your vote.
I would like to add my vote in support.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's unanimous.
Yes, sir.
That is passed unanimously, and the clerk can provide a copy to the River Valley Regional Commission. That's all we had listed, Mayor, on official business.
Okay. Thank you. Next is the public agenda. First up is Mr. David Pate regarding a request to amend the current ordinance pertaining to the size of recreational vehicles that can be parked on residential property. Sir, if you won't come forward to the podium, just state your name and your address. And sir, you'll have 5 minutes, and if for some reason that isn't enough time, at the end of the meeting, you can come back for 3 more.
Okay.
All right?
My name is David Pate. Thank y'all for letting me come in and speak today. I appreciate it. I've lived in Columbus all my life. I'm a retired firefighter. My wife retired from the hospital. We've
just pull that mic towards you a little bit. There you go.
We've been retired about 20 years. We've always enjoyed camping and RVing, and we've spent a lot of time doing it since we have retired. We've owned about 6 RVs since we retired, 6 different RVs. All of them have been in size between 35 and 40 feet in length. We live in the subdivision right in front of St. Francis Hospital, Winchester, on St. Francis Avenue, and we've been there about 30 years. We've always kept our RV beside our home. The front of it did not protrude into the front yard. And it's really never been an issue. To tell you the truth, I never even knew there was an ordinance concerning RV lengths in Columbus, Georgia. Never even thought about it, to tell you the truth. We have always kept our camper back in that area. About, I guess, 6 or 8 months ago, I moved my RV back out to the front yard. We have a large concrete pad. Left it out there for, I guess, a couple of weeks, maybe a little longer, to do some work in the backyard. I guess one of the neighbors came by and saw it and thought we was going to leave it there forever, so they called the city. The city came by and looked at it, and they asked me if they could measure it, and and I told them, yeah. I said, sure. So they measured it and said, your RV is almost 39 feet long. My RV, on my title, it says it's a 36-foot RV. But even if you buy a 36 RV, time you add in the front hitch part and the back part, talking about the bumper and the spare tire, it's a little bit longer. So my 36-foot camper is actually like 39 feet long. So he said, you can't keep your RV here any longer because it's over 32 feet long. And he gave me a copy of this ordinance that I was unaware of. It says section 4.2.24, maximum size RV vehicle shall not exceed 32 feet in length. And, you know, I'm like any other person who lives in a neighborhood. I really wouldn't like large, big RVs like mine in the front yard either. I would not like it at all. Matter of fact, I would be not happy with it. Matter of fact, I would probably not be happy with even a 32-foot camper in my neighbor's yards. A 32-foot camper is a pretty good-sized camper. It's pretty long. And, you know, I'd prefer as a neighbor, you know, if they had a camper even 32 feet long, and to have it back, you know, like in their backyard or beside their home or somewhere. Because I certainly wouldn't want to offend my neighbors. I would not like to do that. It's really never been an issue because of where our RV is located. And really, I ride around Columbus a lot, and you don't really see a whole lot of big campers in people's front yards. Mine wouldn't have been there if I hadn't been doing the work in my backyard. The situation required my wife and I to move our camper. Well, we tried for weeks to find a decent storage place, and they're so limited in Columbus, and couldn't find any place around Columbus to even store it. So we wound up having to store our camper like in the woods out in the country, up on actually this place out on Veterans Parkway. Mr. Macon out there owns some property out there, and he lets people park RVs out there for a small fee per month, just like out in the country, though. It's out in the woods, you know. Of course, it's got a gate and it's security and everything. But just recently, we wanted to go on a trip, so we go get our camper and bring it home for a few days to clean it up. We had it home like, I think 3 or 4 days, and here city comes again. And they said, you can't bring your RV here. You can't even bring it here for 2 or 3 days cleaning it up. You can't do that. I guess my 5 minutes is up.
Yes, sir, you've got it, yeah. I tell you, Mr. Pate, you can come back at the end of the meeting for an additional 3 minutes. I don't think it'll take us that long to get to the end of the meeting. We don't have any presentations. But I think in the short run, we could refer this to the city manager and let him try to see if it's time to relook at that ordinance. The challenge is when somebody makes a complaint, we don't have the manpower to go out there and proactively hit every street in this city, but when they do receive a complaint, so it sounds like one of your neighbors has, the minute they saw it back out there, they went back out there and called the city again. Mr. City Manager, do you have any comment?
Mayor, I can certainly get with staff and take a look at it. And I'm thinking as he's talking, and when I say take a look at it, I think we'd probably have to hear from the public to the community, because I don't know why the law is on the book, right, but it's there, and it's probably there for a reason. And people probably don't want campers in the front yard, in the backyard, in their neighborhoods. And if we don't take if we don't hear from others about extending the length of an RV, we may very well have people coming out of everywhere with concerns. So we'll certainly, let us take a look at it and figure out the best approach.
Okay.
Because if his neighbor is calling the city and you duplicate that in neighborhoods throughout Columbus, and you're going to be hearing from others calling you, and people just, I don't know what their reaction will be.
We just need to take a look at it, and you're right, we do have to be careful about how we respond to that, but we do need to kind of get on it fairly quickly so that we don't allow this delay. Ms. Pate, thank you for your service.
Can I mention one thing, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I called Phoenix City, Alabama, Savannah, Georgia, Macon, Georgia, Albany, Georgia, and Atlanta, Georgia. None of them have a length, a maximum length on how long you can have an RV at your home. None of them. I've got the names and telephone numbers of every one of these governmental people I talk to in every one of these cities. And the campers, y'all, RVs, the maximum length, 95% of every RV that you see anywhere will never exceed 40 feet. Never, never. They're not like a tractor trailer. In other words, when you talk...
No, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. The maximum length, 60% of all RVs you see are between 30 feet and 40 feet. 10 feet, 60% of every one you see in the United States. My wife and I we've been from Maine to Nova Scotia to California to Florida. Hundreds and thousands of hours we've spent looking for campers and camping. I'm telling you, 95% of all the campers in the United States are 40 feet or less. I mean, if they was just...
And I'm sorry to interrupt, I hope you'll forgive me, but we've got a couple of counselors that wanted to say something, so if you'll allow me to go through the queue of the counselors. First is Councilor Garrett.
Mr. Pate's one of my constituents, and we've talked at this at length. Something Mr. City Manager, if you could consider, would be if he's got a way to store it on the side of the house, maybe if we have some sort of setback requirement where they can be under 40 feet. Because I think that's the best solution that we can look at, keep everybody happy. And if they've got a way, maybe he can clean it out front and it can't stay overnight out front, but he's going to have a way to clean it. But
I think that's smart move. I think we just take a look at it and see if it's possible to manipulate the ordinance a little bit in terms of not changing it and expanding the allowance of that, but just to kind of set some finer guidelines. Councilor Crabb.
You and I are on the same page. Thank you. I was thinking maybe something that it can't protrude past the front corner of the house. So, and then, it can be cleaned or something, just not overnight past that front of the house. Keep it in the backyard or on the side of the house, but not anywhere in the front.
So are you saying they can bring it home and clean it, or it can stay there on a 365 days?
It can stay there. It can stay there as long, and it can store, either in the backyard or on the side of the house, but it can't protrude past the front corner of the house, so it's not in the front yard. That's what I'm thinking.
And I don't want to do pushback. I'm just suggesting to you
Two
that
sides to every story.
There's some neighborhoods that would be an issue for, and if you want to hear from them, we can certainly make sure that we at least, because if we don't do something to allow others to have input, then we may bring you an ordinance change that you may regret.
Let's bring an update on it, and then let's just allow council to ask questions and put some things in there, and then it'll stimulate a little interest within the community as well. Councilor Woodson?
Mr. Pate, I wanted to make sure because you were storing the RV on the side of the house, not in the front, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So when we have this discussion, I would like for you to send us some photos because it's more easier to look at, or if you can give the clerk your address, I would like to go and look at it.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I think that's, in the conversation, that's where we're getting confused. You're saying that you're storing it to the side of the house, but to cleaning it, you would do it in front of the house. And I agree with what your council member said of, not overnight, but for that day where you can go ahead and take care of it. But I thank you for bringing it up because there's probably other people in the same position that you are. So this gives us a chance to look at that ordinance. We have a lot of ordinance that are old that need to be updated, but we can't go to each one looking for them. So each time a constituent like yourself brings something to our attention, it's good for us to see it. And I agree, we can do something as quick as possible so people will get interested in it so they can come and give their opinion. But I understand what you're saying because I owned one once upon a time. And you're right, they're not cheap, and you don't want to leave them somewhere where it can get vandalized or deteriorate because of the environment that's in, so.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Woodson,
And-
if that thing was
Mr.
just
Pate,
worded
Mr.
at
Pate,
the...
I really apologize for this, but unless you're asked a direct question, your time has expired. You're welcome to stand there. If anybody has a question, you can answer it, and then you can come back for an additional 3 minutes. But in the
Just get the
meantime,
pictures.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry, sir.
Also, Mr. City Manager, you may want to look at, if the camper is being sold for 32 feet and it's 34 feet and the enforcement goes out and measure, that seems to be a problem.
And one way you could look at it is to look at the actual length of the camper and not the add-ons like a spare tire. So, I think that's reasonable to take that approach. I just...
And also, look at some kind of temporary application or something. If his problem started when he couldn't get it to the backyard, he had to move it from the side of the backyard because he had work being done on the backyard. If he didn't have work being done in the backyard, we wouldn't be here talking about this today.
If he was doing the work in the backyard?
So it was like...
Depends on who the neighbor and their backyard. It might not.
All right, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Councilor Thomas?
Mr. City Manager, I would also suggest a couple of things. One is that I don't have a camper. I don't drive a camper. I don't do that. I don't have much knowledge of all of that. But as you are developing this new ordinance, I would suggest that perhaps you have somebody that does, that has that kind of information. The other thing is I would be careful about how long we might allow the camper to be, the RV to be in the front of the house. If he said he could not find a place in Columbus to store this, and so he had to store it a good distance away, if he went and picked that up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and brought it home, an overnight restriction is too restrictive. And so we may want to look at, you can't do it more than 24 hours or 48 hours or something along that line. But I really would encourage you to make sure that somebody in the discussion has experience with campers and with RVs, and so knows some of the things that we may not know about campers. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And one more point on it, Mayor. If we're talking about a UDO text change, it would have to go to the Planning Advisory Commission hearing and then here before it was ever adopted.
Which is good, because as the city manager pointed out, there are going to be other opinions on this particular issue. So thank you. All right, next, Ms. Audrey Holston Palmore, regarding a request for support to meet with the risk management manager. Good evening. Good morning. We haven't been here that long, have we?
Good afternoon.
You state your name and your address.
I am Audrey Holston Palmore, and I reside in what is known as the Midtown area at 1035 Lawyers Lane. I am here to appeal to each counselor, the city attorney, and the city manager my concern about what I hope to be an important concern to each and every citizen residing in Columbus, Georgia, in reference to human decency and being a civilized human being. I have made an effort through public agenda to have the consideration and the recommendation of council to address the negligence, denial, and disregard for human health displayed by personnel of the Division of Parks and Recreation of the Columbus Consolidated Government on Saturday, March 24th, 2018. This appeal for an outward recognizable display for respect, dignity, and compensation is now an appeal to be heard by the Risk Management Manager of the Columbus Consolidated Government. It is ongoing and forward-moving. In a letter sent to each of you recently, seeking support to have an in-person meeting with the Risk Management Manager, I did not receive any type of written communication, but I do thank you for giving me the money that I had applied for stamps and other written material for you to read over through the letter. A letter dated March 7th, 2019 from the Risk Management Manager needs to be discussed because the message of the letter is full of conveyances of confusion. My daughter nor I want to just leave the misinformation standing as a valid historical document. I will not be entitled to another appearance on this meeting agenda until August 11th, 2019. I hope to receive written communication in my mailbox telling us, meaning myself and my daughter, when to come to a meeting with the Risk Management Manager of this government. And I want the recommendation of the council, the city manager, whom I sent a letter and I haven't gotten a response, about the denial of compensation that we're asking for because of the disrespect, the disregard, and the negligence that I've been speaking to you all about since April 2018. Thank you for your attention, and I hope to hear from you before August the 11th. And I hope that we can have a meeting very soon with the Risk Management Manager because of the March 7th letter that my daughter just couldn't believe. She was reading the information, simple information about a simple event that just totally disregarded her effort to do something good for the family and the community and our friends. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Palmore. All right, Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, if I may just, okay, if I may, I just want to comment on Ms. Palmore's comments. And Ms. Palmore, I'm talking to the council.
Oh, well,
Thank you.
I thought you were still talking about the issue that I just mentioned.
Thank you for your appearance.
I know, just in case.
We've been dealing with this issue that Ms. Palmore has been coming to you with for some time. And my office met with her, and I've shared this with you before, on a matter not related to Ms. Palmore, but to her daughter, where obviously there was some miscommunications about the rental of a parks facility and a restroom that was not operational. And I met with Ms. Palmore's daughter, and we reimbursed her for the use of that facility because a restroom, outdoor restroom, was not available. We didn't have to reimburse her because it was known up front, but we did. Further, I granted to Ms. Palmore's daughter, in addition to refunding her for rental of the facility, I provided a letter to her to allow for the use at no cost of any Parks and Rec facility in the city over the next year. And at that point, considered the matter resolved. And so since that time, and it seems like it's been over a year now, there's been back and forth. I've met with Ms. Palmore. She's made numerous appearances here at this council. She filed a claim. It was her daughter reserved the facility, but she filed a claim with Risk Management. Risk Management responded and considered the matter resolved. And so it seems that she is not willing to let go of this matter and continue to make appearances here at this council. And I know she's had numerous meetings with the mayor. As I said, I've met with her, and Anne Marie and the risk management staff have dealt with her. And I say all of that because I know that there are some listening by television, but I wanted to just, we got to bring this matter to closure. And so, as far as I am concerned, the matter is closed. And so I am not going to encourage or direct our risk manager to meet with Ms. Palmore on the subject that's related to her daughter. She wrote her, she rendered an opinion, the matter is closed, and we're moving on. And so there's nothing else I can do for Ms. Palmore, and there's nothing else risk management can do for Ms. Palmore. And so unless you direct us to meet with her on this subject, we will not be meeting with her. The matter, as far as I'm concerned, is closed. And so the continued back and forth here on public agenda to talk about a matter that we've resolved by reimbursement and allowing for usage of a Parks and Rec facility at no cost, that's all we can do. I consider the matter closed, and I will not be meeting with her on this subject. If she has a different subject, yes, we will meet with her on something other than this matter. But on this particular matter, the risk manager will not be meeting with her, and I will not be meeting with her. And so I wanted to say that to let you know that I consider the matter closed.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
And so with that,
I have some counselors. Councilor Davis.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, has a claim been made, a monetary claim request been made to risk management?
I believe she made a demand for some monetary payment.
Okay. And so if the city is saying that it's been resolved, then Ms. Palmore, the only avenue that Ms. Palmore has is a civil suit. She can file a civil suit against the city. if she believes she's been wrong.
That's correct.
And it would be resolved in the courts.
That's correct.
So it wouldn't need to be, there's no more reason to resolve it here, or try to resolve it here. I mean, that's the only avenue that she has left.
That's correct.
Okay.
And
She
if she
knows that.
feels that that's what she needs to do, then I don't, well, I can't advise her.
Ms. Palmore,
I can't advise anyone. I'm saying to you that we have rendered an opinion, a decision, and there's no need to continue, as far as I'm concerned, to go back and forth.
Right.
And
Well, I think what the council needs to do is just, if there is by a citizen, after it's already been through a process, which it has, and it seems to be resolved from the city standpoint, I don't see any objection, but there's a contest here, then it goes to a civil matter and it goes to the court system. So the council just needs to let Ms. Palmore need to know she needs to go get an attorney and go through the court process if she believes she's been wrong. That's
my thought.
Or just, I guess it's a closed matter because it's continuing to talk about the same subject and nothing's going to get resolved.
That's correct.
That's correct. Her claim has been denied in writing, and we can only advise her to consult with an attorney. And as far as this matter, it is closed, as the city manager has stated.
Ms. Palmore, you can wait till after the end of the House meeting if you want to speak.
Well, I think it,
Ms. Palmore, you can wait till at the end of the council meeting, as the mayor told you. No.
You mean for the 3 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
well, instead of a continuation, Ms. City Manager, I think that's what needs to be stated, and that's,
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's what it is, because every citizen needs to know what their next step is. That's the next step. That's the only step.
That's right. And, you know, my office has reached, we've gone as far as we can go, and unless you want her to keep showing up here at public agenda and addressing you about the matter as she's done today.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
That's it. We don't have anybody else on public
Okay.
agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem, on my agenda, first, I've got a number of grants that you normally get every year at this time, and the first one is the 2020 Georgia Department of Transportation Planning Contract for the MPO.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the grant be approved. Request for the grant be approved. All those in favor? Is it,
Queued up.
queued up? Okay.
Next, I've got Columbus Fire and EMS Strategic Plan and Standards of Cover Community Risk Assessment Update, and we're asking your approval for this, for the Columbus Fire EMS.
Move approval.
Second.
Some properly moved and second. Queue up.
I'll go do it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Move approval.
Motion that we approve all these grants as one vote.
3 through 9, through 8.
Through
8.
8. Second.
The proper motion is second that approval for 3 through 8. And
Madam Pro Tem, a couple of voters hadn't voted for the one right now.
what's that again?
Couple people need to vote
Oh,
on the previous one. Get it again. Okay.
okay, that passes.
Now put the other one.
Now, the motion is to approve 3 through 8.
We have the city manager just read the title of those.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. So I've got the FY 2020 grant application for planning assistance. It's for $132,663. I've got the Federal Transit Administration grant. It's $2.1 million. I've got federal funding for CDBG It's their annual action plan and substantial amendment to the 2018 annual action plan, but the grants that we get from them, 2.2 for CDBG, 2.2 million, and home funds, $900,964. We got a Veterans Court grant from Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. It's $148,221. I've got the Mental Health Court grant, $194,202. We've got Family Connection grant for $50,000. And those are the grants, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, it's queued up. Any more questions? See none.
Okay, next I've got a variance to pole height for AT&T small cell antennas. We're requesting a variance allowing AT&T to construct 50-foot structures for small cell antennas assemblies. Of course, the current ordinance limits the height of the pole for new construction to 40 feet with a 5-foot antenna, but there was in the 2019 legislative session, they passed some bills to allow for 50 feet in commercial industrial areas and not to exceed 10 feet greater in height than the tallest existing pole as of 2019. And so at Mobley Road, 6900 Mobley Road, 1290 Double Churches Road, 827 Double Churches Road, 1700 Amber Drive, and 4186 Primrose Road. These are variances for these particular locations.
Councilor Davis. Have a motion?
No, I need discussion with city manager.
We got to get the first and
Second.
second, now discussion.
To the motion. Ms. City Manager, on these small cells, can you get, so let's talk about this. Let's get somebody to explain this a little bit. I need to know what we're talking about here. Is this this upgrade in 5G networks and all the rest of this stuff? Are we talking about new towers with antennas and other stuff attached to it, and where on the roads are they going to be located?
You want to?
We've met with several different companies now, and this is in preparation for 4G and 5G technology.
We've got 4G, so.
Well, some of the coverage is lower in areas because of the usage, and that's why they're adding antennas on poles to, in areas where there's a weak signal, maybe there's not a direct line of sight, if you will, to the main towers, the larger towers that you see. They're adding some of these in high usage areas, such as public parks, schools, heavy business areas like downtown where you would have a lot of individuals on their phones, trying to pick up the signal there as well.
Well, these, okay, so you said adding to poles. Are the poles already there? They're going to be constructing and erecting poles?
These are new poles.
Okay, these are new poles.
Right.
So they're not on school properties and all based on locations I see. These are more residential or just on the right-of-way, or where are they at?
These will be on the right-of-way.
So they're well, they're not in parks and school areas as you.
I'm not aware of the schools. That would be something they would have to do.
I'm looking at the
on their own.
locations.
But
These are more
ours right now have been on right-of-way.
So are they going to be next to like telephone poles or just standing out on the side of the road?
Some of them will be individual, some of them will be co-locates. These were just the ones that they're installing new poles, and they're going to exceed the limits of the height in our ordinance. There's a mix of a little bit of everything as far as that goes. We do have some co-locates that have already been approved, and they're working on install, where that would go on an existing pole. These were ones that were going to exceed the heights, and then they would have some that are going the right-of-way that are within compliance of the ordinance.
So actually what we're doing here, what the city manager just said about the law was passing, if I remember right, is this the same issue that we were dealing with in Maple Ridge?
It is.
It's the same type issue.
Same issue, yes.
But here they're coming in, they're asking for an extension, which takes it past the 40-foot level.
That is correct, but it's in compliance with the
because of
new
legislation,
regulation. Right.
the state legislation allows them to go to 50 feet, up from 40 feet. And really, we lost a lot of control as to where they go.
Will they allow it with the blessings of the local legislative body? Or,
No.
I mean, why are they here then asking for it?
No, because our current ordinance says 40.
Right.
And the state law, is that correct?
That is correct.
Gave them up to 50.
So we haven't
That's right.
changed our UDO?
That's right.
Okay, all right, I got that. Do you have any, photographs or any kind of displays on what these things are going to look like?
Well, we brought them here.
We did.
And they came and they did.
Well, I understand, but I'm going to get the calls.
I know,
When
and
they
that's
start
why,
going up,
and that's
so-
why I proceeded
That's why I'm having this
to
discussion.
identify the locations for you so that you would know
Yeah.
these locations. And if you remember, we fought this
Right, I
legislation.
think all four of them in the district I represent.
Yeah,
so.
we fought the legislation. We did not want it. We called on our delegation to
Right.
help us out because, and I was very dramatic in saying, you may wake up one morning and you start driving down your street and there it is, and we had no say in the location. And so what we have done is started to work with them to agree on a location, but they don't have to. The legislation just gave them their way.
Do we have any say-so in the safety of the placement of these towers?
Say that again?
The safety, I mean, these Mobley and Double Churches is heavily traveled roads.
Right.
And to have a tower sitting on the right-of-way.
Well, and that's why we work with them we try and work with them to make sure that,
Correct.
and to agree on where it should be placed.
Okay.
And so they may want to place it at a particular spot, and we may have them move it up further or back further for safety reasons that we identify. But they have a right, based on the legislation, to
Right.
place it there.
Right.
Well, and again, that's why I want to have this discussion, because I'm hoping that my constituents, the body, the council body here, their constituents will hear this, because it's not just district I represent. It looks like it's
That's
going to
right.
start happening all over town.
Well-
But we're going to, as always, we get the calls. People are
Right.
going to be concerned, so.
Well, we had, I know you remember, but, I was very candid and dramatic about what to expect when we had these discussions and we were opposing. I was very dramatic, because they were putting them in front of commercial businesses. And I think I used a business that you know and familiar with that as an example, that you may be Teese's or Aflac or somewhere, and you go driving to work, and, the president, CEO, and they want to know, what's that? Well, they didn't ask anybody. They were just out, they just decided this is a good location. I don't like it.
Well, let me ask you one thing. I know that I think Maple Ridge got worked out as far as the decorative poles and things of that nature, maybe moving, it was a safety hazard as well. I think that got resolved, but here, is there any effort do we have an option of decorative poles and things like that, or is it just a standard pole that's going
Well,
up?
we've tried to negotiate that,
Okay.
and we want, if you've got decorative poles in the area where they're trying to go, then I think it needs to be
They
consistent.
agreed to that.
And they've agreed to that.
Okay. And our people, our staff are monitoring that and looking out for it.
Well, they still come through us, and so we know now, but the concern early on was that they didn't even have to come talk to us. Let's do it.
And you may want to get a copy of that presentation they did.
I remember, I just, I want to have this conversation because they're, I will get some calls on them. I've dealt with these cell towers in the area, and I just.
And I think the first one, the first call I got was.
Communication is the key.
The first communication I got was early in the morning from Counselor House. sent me an email with a picture.
Where'd this go?
Yeah, and this has been months ago, of course, and we brought them here, and we've had discussions, and we've gone back and forth, but that's where we are.
I think away, I'm just going to send them to Council House.
But anyway, that's where we are.
Are there any additional? Councilor Allen?
The city manager, Donna, if, in reading this, it appears that current ordinance is 40 feet with a 5-foot antenna. So does that mean 35 feet and a 5-foot antenna? Makes it 40?
40-foot pole
Plus 5.
plus 5 feet.
Okay. The letter from AT&T says the structure shall be no more than 40 feet with a 5-foot antenna. Now, to me, that means it's all-inclusive. It's 40 feet with a 5-foot antenna.
It is somewhat confusing, and we had them send us a diagram, which they've got to go back and change. 50 foot is for the whole assembly, the pole plus the antenna.
That's my question.
Yes.
So when we approve this, it'll be 45 with a 5-foot
That's-
antenna.
yeah, that's
That was
what-
my question.
Is that what?
It's not going to be 55 feet, right?
Correct. 50 foot is the maximum, including the
Okay.
antenna.
All right.
Yeah.
That's my question. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Councilor Cramp?
Thank you. It was my understanding from that last meeting that if there were other poles in the area, that they would use those first before they put up new poles.
That is correct. If it meets their criteria that they need to get the signal that they're looking for.
Because I just Googled 6900 Mobley Road, and there's a light there. There's, along one side of the road, they have power lines. And so there's poles there's a lot of poles in that area. Why do they need to add another pole when there's poles all over that area that they could use for this purpose?
There are very strict guidelines as far as electrical code and the clearances that they have to have as it relates to power lines, and they can't meet them on those existing poles.
Okay, thank you.
So, but just know that we are not proponents and supporters of, these.
Oh, Councilor Thomas?
Mr. City Manager, as I understand it, there is not currently at 6900 Mobley Road a pole.
Is that right?
And they're wanting to put in a pole, right?
That is
I mean, they're
correct.
they're
Not a pole that they could use.
But they're not just extending their current pole, right?
No, ma'am, this would be a new pole.
A new pole.
With a new antenna.
The other question that I have is, since the legislature passed this, we don't have a choice, and so what this is doing is amending our UDO to be in conformance with the state law.
This would be a variance from our current UDO, and what we probably need to do is go back and amend the
We would have to do
UDO
that.
to be consistent with state
Okay, so
law.
this doesn't amend it, this is just a
A
variance.
variance, yes,
Because they, under state law, have the right to do this.
that's right.
Right.
And so we need
Whether we
to,
want them to or not.
that's right. And so we need to actually go and amend the UDO to comply with state law.
And I'm sure that sooner or later you'll bring that to us.
Yeah. Well, she says we're working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor House?
Well, thank you. And that was actually the question I was going to ask. Do we really have an option? And what you're telling me is state law says we don't.
Right.
Okay. We just have to change UDO. I have one other question. Are these locations, I understand it's in the right of way, but is next to it a house or what? What's next to all of these locations?
Some of them do have houses in the area,
So
they do.
Councilor Davis is going to get a phone call, and then they're going to call
He
me.
likely would.
Or Councilor Thomas. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Well,
Sam, send me a picture.
I
Okay,
have one like that, I referred it to.
Okay.
okay.
okay. Any more questions on this? We have a motion and a second for approval.
Okay,
Passes. Counselor Huff?
We still have two missing.
Turn Huff on. Huff.
All of them are done? Pops. Press it again, and Gary. Gary.
That passes. Counselor Huff?
Oh, there it is. Will we get updates each time on the polls as they come into existence to go into our districts?
We can do that.
Yeah, please do that. Let me know so I have a head start.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, I've got some purchases.
Second. Please read them all.
Sure.
A motion and a second. Items A through E. Any questions on any?
Mayor Pro Tem, I've got a tandem axle fuel truck, $237,077. We got 35-foot low-floor transit buses. This is just a contract, doesn't mean they're purchasing, but when they are ready to purchase buses, they've got an agreement in hand that they don't have to go through a process because it takes 2 or 3 years when you order a bus to get the bus. So this kind of helps expedite it. Removal of residual ground material. We've got a primary and a secondary contractor to help Public Works when they are in need. I've got traditional utility vehicles for Cooper Creek Tennis and Civic Center. And have a herbicide truck with roadside sprayer attachment as a replacement vehicle for Public Services Right-of-Way Forestry Division. Those are the purchases.
Okay, you have a motion and a second for A through E purchases. Cue it up. That passes unanimously.
And that concludes my agenda.
Anything else, City Manager? Clerk?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. For the clerk's agenda, item number 1 is a resolution excusing Councilor Huff from the June 4th meeting.
Move approval. You can't second your own. You can't second your own.
It's a motion.
It was real quiet.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 1, excusing Councilor Huff from the June 4th meeting. No questions. All those in favor? Cue. Is that going to be queued up, Tim Bruce?
Yeah, that was to excuse for June the 4th.
Item number 2, minutes of various boards to be received.
It's a motion and a second that we receive various minutes. Any questions? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Next, we have board appointments. We will bring back the mayor's appointments for the next meeting. We have one council appointment that's ready for confirmation. Councilor Allen is nominating John Parton for the Community Development Advisory Council.
Move approval.
It's a proper motion and second. Approval of John Parton for the Community Development Advisory Council. See no questions? All those in favor say aye. Any opposes? Thank you.
We have one council district seat appointment that's open for nominations. This is the Council District 3 nominee.
Our nominee next week, they're trying to get clearance from their job that they can serve. I'm sorry. I'll have your nominee for the next meeting. They're trying to get clearance from their job that they can serve.
Thank you, Councilor Huff. Next, we have council appointment Any nomination would be listed for the next meeting. We have the tree board. We have open nominations for the seat of Candace Wayman. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, Councilman Huff.
I just something totally different. If you would, I just wanted to publicly say, because the president of the Neighborhood Association for Holly Hills was here this morning, and she just wanted it be known that they had some storm damages and everything that the mayor is well aware of on Sunday, and it involves the creek in Holly Hills that's backed up to Ukraine and California Drive. And she was just here this morning. She wanted to basically meet the mayor and say hello to the city manager this morning. But she had to leave, so she just asked me to mention that and to let the mayor and the city manager know that she will be calling to set up a meeting. Thank you.
Yes, and that's in the audience.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I did just want to mention, we have one public agenda for upcoming events, and Ms. Tesha Mack is present. We did have an application for her. We just didn't have a date, so I would suggest that we allow her to have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Second.
City Attorney. What did I take first?
Well, that's completely council's discretion, but you can go ahead and hear this lady for 5 minutes.
Okay. And then we'll hear Ms. Howell for 3 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, but I called, I don't know what happened, but I had called this in over a month ago. So, and we're not looking backwards, but if she has an opportunity to talk, they have an upcoming event this weekend.
You give us your name and address.
I'm Tisha Mack with Columbus Hospice of Georgia and Alabama. I currently live in Harris County, but I'm here representing Columbus Hospice on Moon Road in Columbus. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you. I will probably not take the 5 minutes, but we do have an upcoming event this weekend, Camp Hope. It actually starts Friday. This is for our community children ages 6 to 16 that have had an experience of death in their family or in whatever extended family they may have. This is free to the community. It is not limited to just people that utilized hospice services. I know that we've had a number of tragedies over this past year. This is a little bit of a late notice because, like Pops was saying, we talked about this a while back trying to get us in here. But this is something that we do every year. So in the event that we don't have anyone this coming up Friday, we do this every year, like I said. But I do have some pamphlets here for while you're in the community. If you know of people that, areas that have children, like I said, ages 6 to 16, it is completely free. We take them for the day and we just allow them an opportunity to have other people with them that are their age so they can talk about their experience and not feel pressured by the parents to not feel those things that they're going through. Columbus Hospice has been in this community for 40 years as of this year, so this is very near and dear to us. This is very much a part of the community here and in Phoenix City and surrounding counties. So if you have any questions for me, I'm open to that, but like I said, I'm just here to make sure that everyone knows that this is something that's available. So.
And I want to say thank you to Columbus Hospice. I had several family members to use it. But I remember when it first got started, and the people were so nice when you went and see your loved ones. Mm-hmm. It really makes a world of difference the way people are treated.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Bruce Huff.
Thank you for being here this morning, well, afternoon now, and your patience. Just to say kudos to you. You all do a great job. I get to work with you on a regular basis,
yes,
due to the business that I'm in. But it's such a roller coaster ride.
It is.
And you all make it look easy. The professionalism and everything that's necessary, I have no idea what the training is to get to that point. to be able to walk a family through the steps and have them at ease at the end. But just left your facility a couple of days ago, and I had that comment with one of the nurses, that they're always reaching out, trying to help.
We are.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Would you like me to leave a few of these with them?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Are there any other questions?
Council House.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
You said it's Friday and Saturday?
It's Friday.
Friday.
It's just a one-day
Okay.
event.
And is it at Columbus Hospice, or do you go around?
We will actually start at Columbus Hospice, and then we're taking them out from there, kind of
Okay.
for an all-day adventure. So
Okay.
different areas and whatnot.
Right, and how does somebody register? They call Columbus Hospice, or?
They can call, yes, that's the best way, because our bereavement department actually sits down with the family, either by phone or in person, and just kind of talks about what the history is,
Okay.
what happened, so they can make sure that they're kind of in the right group
Okay, all right, thank
during
you.
that event. You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions? All right,
I
thank
see
y'all.
none. No other questions? Ms. Howell?
May I go on and proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for the additional 3 minutes for my appeal. The letter from the Risk Management Office is filled with questionable information. The letter is dated March 7th, 2019. It is after I met with City Manager Isaiah Hughley and asked about whom would I follow up with in reference to his denial of my request to receive financial compensation. My relative, who is also my daughter, my biological daughter, my oldest child, and she's spoken through thank you. She's spoken about with Isaiah Hughley as being the applicant for the place that she wanted to have the event through the Columbus Parks and Rec. She calls the information that she read crap. She said, "Mama, this is crap. How could they write this information and put it in a historical document from the city government and expect us to just lot it out?" We're not lotted out on this one. That's why I'm here, to let this body know she wants to be heard by the risk management manager in order for her experience from Columbus Parks and Recreation. She wants it to be known what actually happened. The communication she received from the Columbus Parks and Rec led her to believe that she could invite decent, civilized human beings that are our family and friends to the location. The lack of a bathroom facility was profound. We had cancer patients there, small children, elderly people. And so your manager, your city manager, is saying that it's a done deal and that we need to get an attorney. I don't know where the money for an attorney is going to come. My daughter believes the words of the personnel of the Columbus Consolidated Government that a bathroom facility would be available.
Ms. Howell, your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's always up for one big pound more. Thank you for your attention.
You're welcome. I see no other questions. And with that, I say we are adjourned.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. I was just gonna adjourn us.